Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is present with my sidekick, Relatable Reese. How's it going?
Hey, guys. Or we kind of talked about also, I feel like it was a missed opportunity. I should have been Double Agent Reese.
Double Agent Reese. Yes, it has everything to do with how you and I first got in touch, how I accidentally exposed your identity. I got you burned. With, I don't know what words you want to use, but Double Agent Reese. It's never too late to rebrand. It's never too late to rebrand.
Well, we could take a little, we could do a vote. A lot of people have said they like Relatable Reese. I'm trying to be relatable.
Yeah. Well, you are relatable. So it's definitely part of your appeal. But it would be like if I named my channel Gorgeous Aaron. It's self-evident. You don't have to put it in the title. Do you know what I'm saying?
Everybody knows.
Or Baldy Aaron. You wouldn't want to say it in the title because it's the most obvious thing about me.
So silly.
So, when we did Monday Night Live, I never actually had a chance to answer people's question about why we weren't streaming it to your channel as well. For those of you out there, when you start a YouTube channel, oh wait, I like this one. We had Reese's PCs, of course. That was, but see, that's the audience name, of course. But that's not the one. This is the one I was looking for. Rambunctious Reese. That's funny.
That's kind of fun.
That's your wrestling name.
That's WWE.
Yeah. So when you start a YouTube channel, the first time you try to turn on live streaming, it puts you on a 24-hour wait period, kind of like it's a safety measure for society, kind of like the waiting period for purchasing a handgun. You can't just let any schmo just live stream at a moment's notice. People could get hurt. Yeah. And so they put you on a 24-hour notice. We always forget to tell people to turn that on in advance. So anyway, live streaming is now enabled on her channel. We are simultaneously streaming this to Reese's channel as well. You can, the link to Reese's, to subscribe to Reese's channel is in the description down below. And I'm sure Goldie is putting it in the live chat as she does, because she's fantastic. The world's best moderator. Who started this? Did you start this one? Did you start that one?
No.
Oh my. Oh, okay. Must have been me. Oh, that was when we were practicing.
I was going to say, I'm still learning how to do this, Aaron. Don't be blaming me yet. I don't know how to do it.
Oh my God. Do you have a cat and a dog on your lap at the same time? Or is that just one?
Yeah. I'm starting to have an asthma attack as we speak.
I was like,
too much.
I was like, your cat looks an awful lot like a dog.
Yeah. It's a dog with a cat tail. No, they're that needy. And we spend a lot of time with each other throughout the day. So everybody has to be here in the video. And I think that's okay with the listeners, the watchers.
Anyone who watches YouTube, they seem to have one thing in common. They love animals.
They do. And I just want to name her because people I've noticed Gertrude, but she goes by Gertrude Quibell. And she's full of sass. And don't let that cute face fool you. It's not really a dog. Her birth story is that she's from a woodland creature forest. So we just pretend that she's a dog, but she's not really a dog. But she gets upset all the time, and she's very sensitive.
That's so I feel like there's some significance to that backstory that is lost on me. Is that from a book series or a movie series?
No, but I will say Jeff said that she looks like the never-ending story creature.
Oh my God.
What's its name? He calls her by it all the time. That thing has a name.
You mean the flying dragon dog?
Yeah,
the flying dog dragon.
Yes.
The live chat will tell us. Let's see. Colette says Gertie looks like a creature from a woodlands creature. Falcor.
That's what Jeff calls her.
The flying dragon dog. I always think it. Look, I mean that dragon looks like a dog, right? It's a flying dog.
It does.
Basically.
Yeah. That was such a cool little creature thing, but she's not the same size, of course, but she came from a magical forest. So she just a lot of sass. You guys will see there's a lot of sass there.
Yeah. Well, we were chatting today about all the funny things we're going to be chatting about on YouTube. And it occurred to us, we had to bring the good word to the people about finally, people have been asking us, have you ever met a reincarnated Scientologist from a past life, how come the Sea Org members, the motto of the Sea Org is we come back. How come none of them ever come back? How come no one ever comes back and says, hey, I'm Joe Blow from, AO, I'm from AOSHEU, and I'm here reporting for duty. I finished my 18-year LOA, and my body is now big enough to come back. I'm reporting for duty. How come it never happens? Guys, we're bringing you the good news. We finally had one come back. It's official.
Are you sure people don't come out of the woodwork and say that, though? Have you ever heard of a story where someone's like, I'm back?
No. Do you know the stories that I've heard is some person will pop out of the woodwork. The most recent one that I knew of was the bookstore officer at Asho Day. He was this guy who had popped up from nowhere. He'd come from South America, kind of a brand new Scientologist. And he decided that he was LRH, L. Ron Hubbard reincarnated. And I could be mistaken. I don't want to tell tales out of school, but he picked some other brand new Sea Org member that he was sweet on and said that she was Mary Sue Hubbard. Now, it might have been Sarah Seltzer. It might have been Sarah Seltzer who came on my channel a little bit ago, and she went on Laura's channel as well. I'm going to have to ask Laura if she remembers that, or if I'm getting her mixed up with someone else. But if anyone claims to have been L. Ron Hubbard reincarnated, they are like the Office of Special Affairs, like zeroes in on them. And it goes, this person is a security risk. They're mentally unstable. We need to get them out of here. And I know a lot of people think that's because David Miscavige is so paranoid of that someone claiming to be L. Ron Hubbard could take over. Nobody could ever take over, no matter whether they claim to be L. Ron Hubbard or not. It's that people, for an organization that believes in past lives and full recall of past lives, it sure is paranoid about people who claim to have been other people. Other known people in past lives, like pretending that you're someone famous. Everyone does that shit in their auditing sessions, but pretending that like, oh, hey, I was your son in a past life. It's going to get you put on the crazy list.
I think it's weird to say you were LRH. I mean, that's pretty extreme, but at the same time, don't they maintain like houses for him and wash his clothes and keep his pack of cigarettes next to the bed? Then what are we waiting for? It's got to be somebody.
I know.
It's bizarre.
If you think too deeply about this, one of the main abilities Scientologists are supposed to get when they do their OT levels is being able to telepathically communicate with other beings.
Correct.
And there's no one in history who is believed to have had a more honed skill in that regard than L. Ron Hubbard. And you'd have to go, then why isn't L. Ron Hubbard telepathically communicating to David Miscavige? Why isn't that something Scientologists would accept? Like the Pope can claim to speak to God. Am I wrong? I don't want to misquote anybody. I'm not an expert on world religions, but I believe the Pope claims to be the single messenger of God. Can you guys correct me in the chat? Does the Pope claim to have a direct line to God? Please let me know. But let's just, for the sake of the argument, say that he does. Shouldn't David Miscavige be able to say, I had my weekly meeting with L. Ron Hubbard, and here's what he told me? Shouldn't that be something acceptable in Scientology?
What if he does?
But I mean, shouldn't it be acceptable? David Miscavige should be able to claim that publicly, and Scientologists would be able to go, that makes sense. But David Miscavige doesn't claim that. He claims that he has found a new memo that L. Ron Hubbard wrote, and some secret SP stashed it in a trunk in an attic, and it has just been discovered. And based on this never before seen memo, what L. Ron Hubbard really wanted was X, Y, and Z. And you're like, should you really have had to find that memo to know what L. Ron Hubbard really wanted? Shouldn't he have been able to just tell you?
That's a good point. Yeah. I never really thought of that.
Okay, so Steve Britton says Pope is Christ's representative on earth. He does not have a direct line to God per se. Interesting, because I'm not sure I understand the distinction, but I get what you're saying. I'm not sure that I understand the distinction. Steve Britton says, however, if the Pope issues a bull from the seat of the Bishop of Rome, it is considered infallible. Okay. So yes, infallible, and that's interesting, right? Because in order for it to be infallible, the way I'm thinking about it, it would have to be considered to be of divine nature. And how can the Pope be of divine nature if he's not somehow having a direct line with God? Now, on some level, I don't think you're not supposed to make perfect sense of it. People get so freaking pissed off when I say anything religious, and that's why I try not to. Guys, no one really cares, honestly. In the internet world, we're just speaking from what we feel. We're not speaking. We're not trying to represent the truth of the fact of the matter. We only know so much, guys. We both grew up in a cult, okay?
Right.
Let's see. But I am interested to hear what people say about this. He's considered to be the vicar of Christ, which more or less means that he is the representative of Christ in the sense that Christ was the head of the church. I got to tell you, when I think about the main things on Christ's resume, it's not that he was the head of a church. It's that he was the son of God. So, okay, let's see. We got another one here. David Bruce. The Pope is the vicar of Christ on earth, which means he is Christ. Yikes. David Bruce is spitting hot fire right here. See, that's how I understand it, David. But here's the thing. The same thing happens when I bring on experts to talk about the Danny Masterson scenario, whether we're talking about the sentencing that he's facing, whether we're talking about, Goldie says exactly why we don't do politics and or religion here. It's true. Even when I bring on people from prisons and federal prisons and state prisons and level 2 prisons and level 4 prisons, no matter what anyone says on this channel, I will get emails and text messages about how that person doesn't actually know the real information. We're just having a casual chat here, guys. We're not putting out the video. This is not, we don't claim to be anything other than two people who grew up in a cult having a chat.
Yeah, I definitely don't claim that. I don't know anything about other religions. I really don't.
Yes. Lori says the Pope is Christ claimed no one ever. Yeah. I mean, guys, this sums it up to me. Open to interpretation. Do you know one of the funniest things I ever heard? One of the funniest things I ever experienced as a Scientologist. I'm trying to think. At that time, I was still a Scientologist. I wasn't even a former Scientologist yet. My mom's then boyfriend. No, I'm sorry. Okay. If I wasn't out of Scientology yet, I was close. My mom's boyfriend, who passed away now, otherwise they would still be together. He came from a family where his mother was Roman Catholic, but one or two of his brothers got into the Jehovah's Witnesses. And this was before I knew that the Jehovah's Witnesses considered themselves to be a form of Christianity. In other words, they follow the Bible. And actually, guys, please, as I'm talking about this, please do jump into the chat, because anything I say about this, I'm actually curious to know the truth of it. My understanding is Jehovah's Witnesses claim to be, they are a Christian-based group. Now, of course, Catholics are going to say, no, they're not. And I go, yeah, they claim to follow the Bible. And the craziest thing that I, as a former Scientologist or whatever, witnessed was Catholics and Jehovah's Witnesses fighting with each other at a barbecue over what the Bible really said. And I was like, oh, shit, I thought Scientologists were the only ones who argued about this shit.
No.
These guys were fighting over the Bible just like Scientologists fight over policy letters. And that was actually the first thing that I ever witnessed that made me go, oh, shit. We treat the policy letters like these guys treat the Bible.
Yeah.
That actually was that was a big red flag for me, actually. I was like, we keep telling ourselves that we're not a group of faith. We're not, this is not really your normal religion. L. Ron Hubbard is not a prophet. We are not really followers. And I was like, but these guys talk about the Bible the same way we talk about policy.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yep. They do. I've seen it too.
Let's see. Muriel, Jane. Every religion has their own interpretation to what the Bible says. Yes. And Lance Whitaker, everyone uses their own translation of the Bible. So I think the funniest thing is we haven't even actually gotten to why we called this video a Scientologist finally reincarnates. Guys, we just wanted to bring you the good news. We just wanted to bring you the good news.
Yeah.
What is it that happened? Just tell everyone what we were just chatting about. They were like, we got to do a video about this. This doesn't get enough airtime.
Okay, so Huxley, you guys know who he is. That's my son. He's almost 14. I think Huxley was about 3 months old, about this size here. Just an infant. And I'm going to a Scientology fundraiser like I normally do on a Saturday night, because that's what you do. And I'm going with Michael's dad, Doug. Michael was at work. And I bring Huxley, and there is a very famous, I don't know, Aaron, if he was West US, he was a big registrar in the Sea Org. A registrar is someone who gets the donations, takes your money. And he was good at getting the money. And his name was Ted Bragan. This guy was such a dick swinger. He was such an asshole. He was so rude and just egotistical. It was so awkward. I'm in this event and he calls out, I'm sitting next to Doug holding a baby. Doug is my father-in-law. And he calls out people to donate money. And he goes, Mr. and Mrs. Argis. And I'm like, one of us looks really old because that's my father-in-law. That's not my husband. He thinks that we're married and that's our baby. So I'm like, somebody looks old and it's probably me. So he calls us out. Doug gives the money. After the event, this dick comes up to me and I'm holding Huxley and he goes, hey kid, how you doing? And he like winks and he goes, I recognize him. I remember him. He was in the Sea Org with us. I was like, excuse me, what was that? Come again. I thought that was so weird because they're not supposed to do that. Also, I guess it was a pass because he's 3 months old. You can't do that. I've never heard anybody evaluate like that before. And it was so weird. And I told Brenda, my mother-in-law, about it later, and she wrote a report on him for it. She thought that's
interesting. You know,
Brenda
you just used the word
everything.
You used the word evaluate. I want to tell people. So in Scientology, evaluation is has a specific meaning, and it means telling someone what to think. In Scientology, it would say telling someone what to think about their case. In real world language, you'd probably say it as telling someone what to think about their past or about what is wrong with them. And telling someone who you think they were in a past life would be considered telling them what to think about their case. Is that why you said he probably got a pass because he was only 3 months old and wouldn't understand?
I really am. I still try to make sense of it today because I mean, you know this. It's a big deal. You do not evaluate. You don't say back on your whole track, you probably blah, blah, blah. So for him to say, I recognize him, he was in the Sea Org with us. Now, Scientologists do that all the time, but they don't do it in front of the person. Because I was telling you too later, Huxley was about 9 months old when Brenda had a BlackBerry and he would play all the time. He'd push the buttons like any child, I would think. And she would say to me, she'd go, that's so cute. She was like, he's trying to look up all of his old past life people from the Sea Org. I was like, oh, it's so adorable. That's ridiculous. He's playing with a phone like all kids. Isn't that weird? I never felt natural in Scientology. None of that ever made sense to me. I thought, what? How do you know?
It is weird. And also that whole thing, oh, I recognize him. Let's think about what that would even mean. Because obviously he's talking about a 3-month-old baby. What is it he's claiming to recognize?
He recognizes the being because he's a dick swinging OT8.
Right. He's like, that's right. I recognize the being. I recognize that energy.
I get it. Oh, I see him. I mean, he winked and everything.
With him. How you doing, bro? Good to see you. It's been a long time. Remember that night? Yeah, we got crazy, didn't we? You remember. Yeah, look, he's smiling. He's smiling. He remembers. That is such an asshole thing to say, especially since as an OT8, he knows that so many Scientologists are like, oh my God, you have special powers.
That's why they do it. That's why I call it dick swinging. That's why they do it. My OT8 chiropractor, when I first saw him, he did an assessment on me, and I'll never forget this guy. He goes, all right. He goes, I did a scan. I can see cancer.
You're like, which vertebrae is it in? Which vertebrae?
I didn't see anything. I was like, oh, good. I believed him at the time because OT8s say shit like that all the time because they're, they're so, that's what I'm saying. I want to be OT8. I don't want to cast spells. He, that's the other thing he said. He would say, I am diabetic. And when I first was diagnosed, I went to him because I had been seeing him and he said, oh, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to click away on your pancreas and it'll be gone out of here by 2 p.m. And I was like, oh yeah. Okay. And, he said to me, the only reason you're probably diabetic is when you were born, your dad walked into the room and said, hi, sugar. I mean, that's
told
just
me that.
Yeah, it's just the weird. So all of that is total evaluation, which you're never supposed to do. So to recognize Huxley, I guarantee you, if he could talk, Huxley says to me all the time, did you guys watch that creep ass Tom Cruise interview from, what was it, like 18 years ago with the guy who challenged him? Huxley, he loves that interview.
Oh, the Peter Overton interview with 60 Minutes Australia.
You just did a little clip on it recently. Huxley loves that interview and he'll say to me all the time, he'll be like, Mom, you're crossing a line. Get your manners in. Okay. Get your manners back in,
Mom.
Put your manners back in. He would have said that to this group.
And you are. So put your manners back in.
That was so
did
creepy.
I, Tom? Yeah, you did.
And then at the end, he's like, that was a great interview. And Peter's like, was it? And he's like, I smacked you. I put you back in line. We're good. It's so creeping. But Huxley does it really well. Mom, put your manners back in.
That is so funny that your son has such a sense of humor about it. I love it.
He does, but I feel like he would have said that to that guy if he could talk at 3 months old. He winked and he was like, I recognize him.
Wow. So that guy was an OT8. Was he a Sea Org member?
He was.
And he was a registrar. So this would have been about 14 years ago when Hux was a baby?
Mm-hmm. And he kicked me out of a different event when Huxley was a baby. He came back at like 6 months old. And Huxley, I'm bouncing him and at this event, and he started crying and he goes, Miss, he's like, I'm going to have to ask you to leave with that thing. He did. It was so embarrassing. I was like, this has never happened to me before. I'm a seasoned Scientologist. I've been going to events. He asked me to leave.
You should have been like, you don't have the fucking rank to ask my son, who was your senior in the Sea Org, to leave. Okay.
Do you know who my son is?
Do you know who he is?
He yelled. My husband was on staff at the time. My first husband, Huxley's dad. And he called him Ted. And the guy was like, it made me think so much of Ferris Bueller. If anybody's seen that, when he's like, call me sir, God damn it. When Cameron does that. Cause he was like, he flipped out. He was like, call me sir. He was just like so angry. And I thought, what a dick swinger.
Wow. Say the guy's name again. Did you say Ted Bragan?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why I don't know who that is. A Sea Org. Do you remember what org he was a registrar for?
He came from, I think, California.
Oh, you know what? I wonder if he was an IAS reg.
Yes. Yeah, he was. That's what I mean. He was a big one. He was a big one.
Oh, yeah. There was an OT8. Yes. I didn't know those guys very well. That's right. Yes, there was an OT8 IAS reg. Man, that guy walked around like he thought he walked on water.
He did. I've not experienced anyone like that coming to an org. I mean, he was so rude. I was shocked. I think Brenda kind of was nervous to report him, but she did. She wrote a report on him.
That's dangerous, especially for something as kind of lower level as like evaluating for a child. But wow, that actually takes some balls. So that was your mother-in-law reported him, or your mother reported him?
My mother-in-law, Brenda Argis, who was going to be the EDKC.
Yes.
I'm sure she softened it to like a things that shouldn't be. You know, she's not going to write a KR and give him a copy. I'm sure it was like signed anonymous. She was probably scared. But yeah, it really pissed her off. You know, that's her grandson that he was evaluating for like that. But then here we are 9 months later, and she's like, oh, he's on my BlackBerry trying to call his Sea Org friends, doing the same thing.
Wow. Did Huxley ever actually? Did they ever succeed in getting him into the org to do any courses or auditing?
So no, Michael and I were strong against. He went to events all the time. We took him to events, and he would go to the kid part, right? The kid part where there's like other kids playing and somebody's watching him. One time, Doug had Huxley on a weekend day. I was working, and Doug went to go in session. He had to go in session for something. Didn't say he was going to the org. He took Huxley with him, and I find out. I think Huxley was like 6 or 7, and I find out Huxley signed up for the children's communication course and went on course that day while Doug was in session. I lost my mind, but I also said, who don't the parents have to sign for that? Like, isn't there somewhere where a parent has to sign? And Maggie Kittinger, the ED, said, it's okay if a grandparent signs, and she got him signed up. And I was really pissed about that. I wrote a KR on her, a knowledge report for that's what that means. And that really kind of created a problem between me and my in-laws for a while. We were really upset that they did that without even asking. So that rule after that was Huxley is no longer allowed to go to the org. Michael and I were just very much, because of our upbringing in Scientology, we were very much of the mindset, we want Huxley to choose what religion or what he wants to believe in as he gets older. I want to let him kind of reach for that, and I'll take him to any church he wants to go to. But I'm not going to start making him do courses like I did at the age of 4. That's ridiculous. So we really never allowed that. Thank God.
Yeah.
He doesn't have any horror stories, really.
I think I was about that young when we were first made to do the Success Through Communication course in the main academy with all the actual real adult Scientologists. And it was humiliating. I remember I did not want to do it. It was the lower communication course like that. It's not any of the crazy. It's not the screaming at ashtray stuff. It's not the touching walls, but it is the
it's more silly.
Yeah, the part that I didn't want to do was the bull baiting. I was humiliated to do bull baiting and receive bull baiting, and yet here we have to do it for hours and hours and hours. And I just I don't know. I'm not a big fan of having kids do Scientology. I'll tell you that. My kids never even freaking heard the word Scientology until I filmed the Scientology in the Aftermath TV show. And even then they didn't have any idea what it was.
That's great. That's good. Yeah. And you know what's even creepier about because being on courses as I got older, going to the academy all the time, there were kids on the children's comm course who didn't have a twin. They didn't have anyone to do it with. So they would do those TRs with adults. And I always thought that was creepy to have an adult man bull baiting like a little girl. Because I did that a lot too.
It's disgusting.
It's not good.
It's disgusting. We should I want to tackle some of the super chats right here, and then I want to segue this children being involved in coursework to children being involved in auditing work, because there's some shit we should discuss. Hey, I think this is Cindy Plahuta. Sinfully Good. Aaron, just for you, 3 chicken recipes at Sinfully Good. The new SPTV cooking channel, better than anything you ate in the Sea Org. Reese, speaking of IAS fundraisers, Cindy is someone I knew when I was in the Sea Org, because she was one of the public who did fundraising for, I don't want to get it wrong, Cindy, so correct me. We'll talk about this soon. I thought it was for the IAS, but I know she was also doing fundraising for Superpower. And but you knew some of those people, right? They were public people, but they were good fundraisers, and they would work for the IAS or Superpower.
You're asking me?
Did you have people like that in Kansas City that you knew of?
Yes. Yeah. And I know there was like one specific public that regged the heck out of my dad. He was like a Cornerstone member or something. Is that what you're talking about? Where they're all, yes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Cindy's out of Scientology now. And because I've been mentioning on my channel that we haven't actually heard from very many former Scientology registrars. And Cindy's a really good one. And I can't wait to chat with her about that stuff. So guys, check out, if you haven't checked out this cooking channel, Cindy and I are going to do a chat. Hopefully, what is today? Wednesday? Yeah. Hopefully sometime today, tomorrow, or Friday, we'll we'll do some sort of a chat, even if it's not live. So yeah, the first SPTV cooking channel. I can't wait.
That's awesome.
It's not even the only cooking channel. There's another one too. I'm just it's slipping my mind right now. I can't anyway. Okay, so Andrew Haig. Have either of you considered writing a live stage play about your experience? Live theater makes it real for people. It might help bring down the church. The answer is no. Have you, Reese? Have you spent any time?
No,
thinking
but
about
that would be hilarious. It'd be a lot to put together, but that's a good idea.
I mean, I'll tell you what. So the South Park guys did the Mormon musical, right? They did a musical on Broadway called Mormon, or the Book of Mormon. I don't know what it is. Those guys, I don't know if anyone in showbiz actually already not only understands Scientology, but is already familiar with being fair gamed by Scientology. Those guys were fair gamed after they put out the South Park episode.
Oh yeah.
And so if anyone's going to do a stage play about Scientology, I can only hope to Xenu that it's is it Trey Parker and Matt Stone? I think it's Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. Lance Whitaker says, I came in later, but I got to know, is Bigfoot a closet Scientologist? Yeah, wherever Bigfoot is, that's where Shelley Miscavige is.
That's sad.
I should say the other way around. Wherever Shelley Miscavige is, that's probably where they're holding Bigfoot. Actually, that he wasn't always a Bigfoot. He used to just be a normal Scientologist, but L. Ron Hubbard used him as an experimentation for the upper OT levels. And something went wrong, went into some massive whole track restimulation. And what you have now is Bigfoot. He's just so humiliated and embarrassed. He keeps himself hidden all the time. And yeah, he's on the RPF up at CST. That's what I say. Elizabeth Marino, please talk a plan.
Please plan a talk.
Oh, please plan a talk with your son and father-in-law in person. It's so much easier to blow someone off over the phone. Well, yeah, but that's why they do it on the phone. Uh-oh. Did one of my things just... Can you say something?
No, I hear you fine.
Okay. That's why they do it on the phone. Like, in order to plan... Well, would this even be possible for you?
No, because I'm declared, guys. So, Elizabeth, I can't... if he were to see me, he'd probably run the other direction. If he makes eye contact, he's going to get pancreatic cancer. So, no. He can't, we can't make that kind of a plan. I would love to. It's a good idea. But at this point, it's such a wound for Huxley. I mean, it's never going to get better. So why try to make that kind of plan? Doug would never get involved in anything like that. Sadly.
That's a really good point. At some point, why enforce connection with someone who's being toxic? And unfortunately, I mean, I almost want to cut him some slack because he seems to be, on the one hand, just from what you've said to me, on the one hand, he seems to be a really sweet, loving guy. But then you've got this Jekyll and Hyde thing where as soon as the Scientology programming kicks in, he just shuts off all his emotion. He pretends that everything he knew and felt before is no longer valid. And it's like, so I say he's a toxic guy, but it's almost, I'm giving him a lot of slack here. It's almost not even his fault. How do you feel about it?
I see. So Jeff says that too. Jeff goes, he's a victim just like you were of this religion, this cult. Look, you guys know how I feel about victims. I was raised to not believe in victims, so I have a hard time even calling myself a victim. Look, I get that he is so brainwashed. That I agree with. But there's 13 years of pure memories, love, Christmases, birthdays, trips together. Doug was my dentist and Huxley's dentist. So root canals, cavity fillings, lots of good times doing that. There's too much there for him to turn away and just leave. I have to make him be accountable in some ways. It's hard to go, well, it's not really his fault. Look, he still loves Huxley, I'm sure. But to what degree? I mean, I have to blame you to a certain degree. You can't just turn the other way to all those memories, all that love. I can't seem to convey enough. He wasn't your typical grandfather. He was practically living at my house because his wife has been training at Flag for 3 years and he has no family here except us. And he's a clingy guy. So like dinners all the time at my house. At what point do you just say, well, we can't blame him? I kind of do blame him.
Yeah.
You should have fought a little bit. He didn't even put up a fight.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
the way you've explained this to me in the past, led me to believe that when Scientology came along and gave Doug the choice to either have to disconnect from Huxley or to divorce his wife instead of disconnecting from Huxley, it seemed like there was a better than 50-50 chance he was going to pick Huxley. That's how freaking close these two are.
yes, 100%. I really kind of thought it would swing that way. Not only did it not swing that way, he never spoke to us again. Huxley had to call him to even get a goodbye. And the only reason he probably picked up the phone is because it was from Huxley's phone, not mine. And he said, I've known you for your whole life and take care. And if we don't ever see each other again, I was like, whoa, I really thought you would at least try. It was crazy.
This, let me write this down because this was something else we just talked about discussing, and we might as well squeeze it in today. And that was, we're going to finish these things here before we go on a tangent, but the disconnection being enforced so differently for different families.
Yeah.
Because it's crazy. It's crazy. Andy Fabulous, aren't OT8s rare?
No.
It's funny. I mean, every Scientology org is going to have at least one or two OT8s in their field. The field is the word Scientology uses for just the area around the org.
Mm-hmm.
In some senses, they are rare. There's probably never been more than 2,000 people in the history of Scientology who've ever finished OT8, is my rough estimate guess. Like, how many OT8s would you say you know?
So that's what I was going to say. In Kansas City, I guess our number's high. We have like 17 of them.
Oh,
tons.
wow.
We had tons.
Look at you guys.
Full of dick swingers. Yeah, just everywhere you look. Casting spells.
Yeah, we're just gonna call OT8s dick swingers from now on.
It's a lot of dick swinging. It's a lot of swinging dicks.
So in Philadelphia, one of the only OT8s that we had was Dennis Dubin. And he was OT8 from like way back in the day, like before the golden age of tech. He never got back onto OT7.
Not new OT8, because that's what they call them, new OT8s.
That's a good question. I don't know when they started calling them new OT8s. They definitely, that term did not come, they were using that term before the golden age of tech. But in the Philadelphia field, I don't think there was more than 3 OT8s total. And Dennis Dubin's the only one I can actually recall. So they're not as rare as a unicorn, Andy. They're just considered like, ooh, you've got those OT powers.
Yeah.
And Dennis Dubin would feed into this. Whenever Dennis Dubin would come to an event, actually, I remember it was an IAS fundraising event, where one of the tours regs comes and does a thing. And because Dennis Dubin not only was an OT8, he was an IAS Freedom Medal winner. So he was a big old swinging thing.
They all are.
So Bobby Wiggins would come to town and do these fundraisers, and he would invite Dennis to come up. And Dennis would bring his damn medal in a box, right? Okay, so Dennis would stand up there, and he would literally just look at everyone and say nothing. I shit you not, maybe 3 minutes straight. And in any normal meeting or group, you'd be like, this man suffers from some sort of mental illness. And you realize, oh no, this is a Scientology event. He's using his OT powers. He's scanning the room. He's putting out his anchor points. He's putting out his tractor beams and whatever, his pusher and puller beams. Yep. And this is his OT8 way of establishing ARC with everyone in this room. And he's like, he's breathing as a Thetan.
Yes. That's what they do.
Breathing. And
it's creepy.
And he was just feeding into this thing of like, hey, whatever weird shit this guy's doing, it's because he's OT8 and he knows something we don't know.
He's a wizard.
Gandalf.
That's how they all are. I told you, my chiropractor was like, I just scanned you and you don't have cancer. I'm like, with what piece of equipment did you just scan me with? Oh,
My anchor
your
points.
thoughts. Yeah, your anchor points. It's so ridiculous, but we had a ton of them in our field. So we were surrounded
Wow.
by OT8s. Yeah,
I wonder why there's so many OT8s in Kansas City. Are there tons of chiropractors and dentists over there or something?
tons. Yes,
Oh,
there's a
that
lot of them.
explains it. That
hmm
explains it. They're the rich ones.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
are. It's, yeah.
All right, let's
Yeah.
see. Kamikaze. Oh, wait. Kamikaze. I like that. Kamikaze. Okay, Aaron, have you looked into Scientology's involvement in remote viewing? United States government's psychic research in the 70s and 90s. At least 6 people involved were Scientologists. Some wrote frequently to LRH. I both love and hate this subject at the same time. I love it because when I was in Scientology, all the information that Kamikaze is referring to is part of what fed into the mystique of the upper OT levels, and that someone like Ingo Swann, who I believe was an OT, was working with the CIA or on remote viewing, and like, yeah, but those projects failed. Those projects failed. And if an OT was capable of exteriorizing at will or telepathically communicating with other beings, they wouldn't need a remote viewing project. They could just come over to Scientology and meet a bunch of OT8s, and the US would have the greatest intelligence weapon known to man, Scientologists. Right. So, Kamikaze, my understanding is that it's sort of become a little bit of a taboo to discuss these things in Scientology openly. It's not as taboo as discussing the OT levels or discussing Leah Remini, but it's considered somewhat of a distraction. It's considered somewhat of an offbeat practice or somewhat squirreling to worry too much about what certain Scientologists' involvement was in the remote viewing experiments. But it's also one of the reasons I haven't looked into it more, is because there's nothing there. It's all bullshit. I would love for it to be true, but I would have loved for the state of full operating thing to be true, and it's just not. It just doesn't exist. I would love for remote viewing to be a real thing, but it's not. I'll watch documentary. I mean, like, anyway, someone's going to be like, how do you know it's not? Just look around, guys. If this was real, we wouldn't be having all the problems as a society that we have. You know, like L. Ron Hubbard, if remote viewing was the thing, and if being OT enabled one to do that shit, L. Ron Hubbard would not have been so much at effect of all of the things governments were doing to him. He could have just popped out of his head, jumped over to the secret CIA briefing room, and known exactly what was going on with respect to Scientology and all that kind of shit. So I appreciate, I mean, I don't want to, I hope I'm not being too harsh, Kamikaze. I appreciate the question, and I love that shit. It just doesn't go anywhere. There's no end to that rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Did you ever read about any of that stuff?
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. Have you ever heard of Ingo Swann?
No.
Oh, okay.
But I was just thinking about something, what you were saying, like the reason also, and this isn't seriously no disrespect. I don't think it's funny. I don't want to make fun of someone dying, but like I look at people like Kirstie Alley, Kelly Preston. Those two people were OT8s. They died of cancer. What we're told and promised, what OT8 is all knowing, all powerful. I mean, like the creep standing there scanning the room. I mean, you can't do both. You know, it doesn't balance out. So it's like, I mean, I really mean it. I'm not making fun of any of that. But if you really were all powerful, like they claim to be, why are these people just dropping dead?
Yeah. Well, like
And I
Kirstie
know a
Alley, you
few in
said
Kansas
that.
City that did.
Oh, totally. I mean, Dennis Dubin is dead. He died of cancer.
Yeah.
And you know, I remember you mentioned that when Kirstie Alley died, people were saying, oh, she chose, or even other people you mentioned, oh, they chose to drop the body. It's like, well, how come they didn't choose not to have cancer? Like you're assigning an awful lot of causation to the very, very, very end there. Why didn't they have causation that would have prevented the end, you know?
But in the same sentence, if you have a family member that's a non-Scientologist that died of cancer and you bring that up to someone at an org, they're going to go, oh, well, they were PTS.
Exactly. Yeah. Kirstie Alley didn't die because she was PTS. She died because she chose to drop the body.
She wanted to,
Like,
but the same non-Scientologist that dies of colon cancer had to have been connected to a suppressive person, probably me. But you know what I mean? It's like, which is it? She wanted to die. She wanted to rot to death of cancer. That was her passion. She chose to do so. But the other person's connected to somebody bad, and they died on, you know. Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say bubble think, you know, people who are stuck in the bubble. It's like they set up these things that have unfalsifiable ways of thinking. You can never actually prove that you're wrong. You've always got this circular thing set up where you cannot actually be proven wrong.
You also aren't really allowed to think like that. What I just said out loud, I never even thought of that being a Scientologist, because you're just trained to have these blinders right here and you can only look what's you're allowed to look at. Like, I never even thought, but wait, what about somebody who dies of cancer that's not a Scientologist? And you just told me they're a degraded being and PTS and deserved what they got.
Right. Oh my God, look, I had it wrong. Sinfully Good goes, no, Aaron, I'm Cynica. I'm a Neverin. Oh my God, what a coincidence. This was the other channel I was thinking of. So Sinfully Good is the other SPTV cooking channel. Cindy Plahuda has a second channel that I'm going to forget what. Sorry, Cynica. I mean, the names are so similar. That's an awesome coincidence. Okay, so let's see. Amy Lopez. Reese is the Disney princess of SPTV, surrounded by all the critters. Love seeing Reese. Thank you for sharing your story. Non-Sea Org staff are abused too. I mean, in some cases, they're abused even worse, honestly. It's harder to be a non-Sea Org staff than it. I believe it's harder to be a non-Sea Org staff member than it is to be a Sea Org member.
Amy, you're a little buttery biscuit. And you know why? Because I love that you called me a Disney princess. So not this house, my first house that I bought, my next door neighbors, I think they kind of hated me, but they made a joke out of it. I love animals. And I would go to this farm feed store, like on the other side of town, and I would buy 50-pound bags of loose corn. And I'd like go out in the morning and feed all the squirrels, and everybody hated me, I'm sure. And I fed the birds. And my neighbors were like, she's like the Snow White. It would really piss them off. Like, how could you be mad about Snow White? But they were. And so thank you for that, you little sweet petunia. Love that.
Amazing. Okay, Nancy Ives, happily giving you lots of love on your channel, Reese. Looking forward to lots of great content. Welcome to SPTV.
Thank you, Platypus. That's so nice. So sweet. I love you guys. I just eat this up. It's really, Aaron, we'll get back to what we were talking about, but you guys, I have gotten, and I already said this, but I'm going to say it a lot. I've gotten so many private messages and I have so many new Facebook friends. I've answered every one of you. I'm super social, and now I feel like I'm more than ever, I'm allowed to be myself. Like, I can just I don't have restrictions like I feel like I used to. And just all this love pouring in, it's overwhelming. I feel like I'm sleeping better. I'm just happier all around. So thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. And hey, let's see. If you're one of the 1,400 people watching live right now, do us a favor and hit that like button, whether you're watching on my channel or Reese's channel. And if you're currently watching on my channel, you might consider opening up another browser and pulling up the stream on Reese's channel as well, and just hitting mute on the sound or whatever, because that'll help her channel build up the watch hours. She's got about 500 right now. We're trying to get her over the 4,000 line. But yeah, you're rocking and rolling. You're rocking and rolling. I mean, you're already up to almost 2,000 subscribers. I mean, 500 hours of view time already. It's crazy. It's amazing.
Wow, that is crazy. And when people comment on like YouTube, I want to answer you, but I don't know how to do that yet. So please don't feel like I'm ignoring you. I read them. That's embarrassing to say. I know.
I'm teaching her, guys. I'm teaching her. We're getting there one step at a time.
It's so silly because I'm married to a software developer. So I should know some stuff, but I don't. But I love you guys. I really do. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because your husband's a software developer, but he's probably not a big YouTuber. I'm like, probably he's not a huge, to spend a lot of time watching YouTube.
Not at all. But I mean, I'm just saying if there were something I needed help with IT wise or something, he could help me. And it's silly that I don't know how to do anything.
All right, Hugabub 7616. Hey, Aaron and the fabulous Reese, I sent you a message, Reese. You're bringing a great new flavor to the SPTV family, being a 25-year Tibetan Buddhist. No, it's not a cult, Osa. Love your energy, guys. Yes.
That's
We're gonna have so
awesome.
much. We're gonna
That's
have so much
cool.
fun, guys. We're gonna be doing a lot of content together. We have a lot of great ideas.
We
Okay,
do.
Lance Whitaker, seriously, your exposure of Scientology and the blatant ridiculousness of it all really helped me to see how ridiculous the cult I was in, even though it was more subtle. I really
love
love
that.
comments like this.
Me too.
Yeah.
That's why I want to do this, for that comment.
Yeah. Sometimes people ask me, what are people's fascination with Scientology? And I go, I don't know that it's Scientology specifically. I think it's that when people hear Scientology related stories, there are so many elements that are held in common with other experiences with high controlled groups, cults, other religious groups, even abusive relationships.
Mhm.
The themes, the common elements throughout all of these are very, very similar. And I think that's one of the reasons even Scientology stories resonate with so many people who've never had anything to do with Scientology, you know?
Yeah. I also just think cults in general are kind of the new fascination. Like, move over, serial killers. We're not as fascinated with you. Cults are where it's at now. I mean, I
know, right?
I say that I still love to watch serial killer stuff, but cults are kind of where it's at for right now.
Why do so many women love the serial killer stuff?
I don't know. It's really fascinating. Some of it I can't watch. It's too dark. But
why are
like,
there
I
not
know
more women serial killers? Or you guys are better at it. You get away with it. You don't get caught.
okay, I was just talking to my therapist about this. I know that's silly, but I love talking about this stuff. Jeff's like, women and men, it's 50-50. And I'm like, Jeff, you're 65 years old. Like, you need to know better at this point. It is not 50-50. Women are not crazy. I was telling my therapist, look, we're crazy, but like, if I'm going to walk into a dark alley and there's a woman standing there, I'm not going to run for my life like I would if there was some Shrek looking fellow standing there by a dumpster. I'm going to get the hell out of there quickly. I'm going to hightail it out of there. So I just feel like we don't kill people like that. We don't think about that. All these dirty, awful things. Watch Dexter. Was there one serial killer that was a woman on that show?
I haven't seen much Dexter.
Oh,
I like
love
my
that
theory
show.
much better. All the prolific female serial killers have just never been caught because nobody suspects them. They're just that good.
Or were they prolific, or did they just kill their husbands?
There you
They
go.
were not prolific. They just shoved him down the stairs and beat him over the head with a skillet. It was one guy. So let's not say they were prolific.
And then she was like, that felt good.
Exactly.
I gotta get me some more of that.
I gotta get remarried so I can do this again. No. Women, I'm just saying, I don't.
I'm paying the female serial killers a compliment. I'm saying they're much better at covering the tracks. They're more professional. That's what there's probably 10 times more. They're just much better than the men. That's what I mean.
I think that's sweet of you to say, and we do appreciate that. However, like I tell Huxley, I think it's really hard to have the career as a serial killer these days. I think if you want to go into that career, it's so much harder than it used to be. There's cameras everywhere. You know, you'd really have to. I would pick a different career path myself.
It doesn't pay well. It doesn't pay well. If anybody should be striking right now, it's the serial killers.
Yeah, yeah.
And but it is the best way to become a TV. It is the best way to become a TV star these days, though, wouldn't you say?
I would say. I'm saying that I think like there are no more the Zodiac. By the way, I totally would have gone off into the woods with Ted Bundy. I would have been a Ted Bundy victim for sure. But I just feel like if you want that kind of cool, mysterious, like the Zodiac, I think he died without being caught. Not that he's cool. I'm just saying you can't really do that anymore. That's a way to go.
You got to go strong. Go out on top.
Yeah, it's definitely a one way to live your life.
Okay, Brian S. See the last podcast on the left. 3 comedians, 0 political. They have 15 hours on David Miscavige, Shelley, Church of Scientology. Very knowledgeable. One guy worked at Borders next to Flag. Told the 1988 Mario Andretti incident. Well, I don't even know what that incident is. You know, I did actually try to watch that podcast a little bit, and I don't remember why, but I didn't last long. I love comedy podcasts, so I'll have to check it out. I have gotten so many messages about this podcast, though. I feel like it was, I don't know, 4 or 5, 6 months ago, they started doing a bunch of Scientology content. I'll tell you what, I watch so much comedy content as it is. If anyone is a fan of my channel and you want to know what is my real sense of humor like, if you watch the Kill Tony podcast with Tony Hinchcliffe, every Monday night, he does a 2-hour live open mic comedy show. Tony Hinchcliffe's comedy, like me and Tony are basically the same person. Our brains think the same things are funny. That is my kind of comedy. Have you ever seen Tony Hinchcliffe? Do you know who that is?
No, I've never even watched a podcast. Again, I use my phone to text.
All right. Well, so anyway, Brian S., thank you for that. I will try to check out Last Podcast on the Left. And who knows, maybe they'd like to chat. That would be fun. Oh, here's an interesting one. Get to How Olsen. Are there more men than women who are OT8? Huh. What would you guess?
Toss up here.
Oops,
I can. It's probably seriously half and half here in Kansas City. There's a lot of each.
I was going to say about half and half as well.
Do you ever notice too, if it's a husband and wife, it's like they're always OT8 together? Do you remember when I was still being a double agent on the inside? Do you remember this? When I texted you, when I was in that Scientology group and I texted you that Dan and Amanda tested on the same day? And I was reading the comments and even Scientologists were like, wait, what? Magical. How did they make that happen? Like power couple. What? You both attested
OT powers.
Your OT8 whole track shit on the same day? Come on. That's weird. I think that's weird.
Well,
but a lot of the times they're both OT8s, like husband and wife couples.
Dan O'Connor's biggest superpower is how to cheat on his wives. Has Dan ever had a wife he didn't cheat on, or ever had a Sea Org member he didn't have an affair with?
He's pretty cheaty.
No.
He's pretty cheaty.
Pretty cheaty. I'm not sure if that's what he was trying to fix on the OT levels, or if that's the powers he gained on the OT levels. Potato, right?
Right.
All right. Hugga Bubba 7616. Reese girl, you're an absolute natural comedian about this deeply serious, nasty garbage. Heal now. Comedy Corner on SPTV later. I'm Scottish, so it's hard to make me laugh, Reese. OT8 dick swingers.
OT8 dick swinging. Thanks, lady.
Yeah.
I love that. It's true. That's what they need to change.
You know,
it
Reese,
to.
you know what we should do is we should jump on an idea that we've sort of thrown around, is creating a show, Scientology After Dark.
That's fun. I like that.
Yeah.
Do you guys like that? Creepy.
Yeah.
We should have Dan on the show though if we're going to do that.
Dan has an open invite. Standing invite. No, Scientology After Dark. All we do is discuss Dan's latest Facebook posts for the week.
I'm blocked, but yes, that would have been fun.
Oh my God. Brian S. Tampa race Mario refused to drive car with Scientology logo. Oh, Tampa race Mario Andretti refused to drive a car with the Church of Scientology logo. Wow. I'm guessing this must have been back in the day. They were trying to get the Dianetics. I remember specifically there was a Dianetics race car. Both, I want to say Formula One.
It was in the We Stand Tall video. Remember that?
I know. Yep. There was a and who funded that thing? Oh shit. You know, at one point Grant Cardone was trying to fund a new Dianetics race car. And it's the stupidest thing. Like, you know, it doesn't need brand recognition. Dianetics does not need brand recognition. It's such a waste of money.
It sure is. But I do remember it in that video. I wonder if I could make that my ringtone.
Which one?
We Stand Tall.
Oh, you totally could. You can make anything a ringtone.
I used to watch that over and over when I was little. I know every word.
It's a good song.
It's so fun.
It's a good song. I mean, other than the fact that it's so cheesy and it's a Scientology song, I mean, I think it's a good song.
I mean, it was just a fun time. I was asking, what's the guy's name from the other night? Mark Fisher. I was asking him before we went live, do you remember the other music video by Scientology called We Are the Auditors? He didn't know. How come nobody knows that one? Tell me you knew it.
I loved that video and that song.
Aaron, you're the only other person that I know that knew it. I
They would
loved
play
that
it before
song.
before every single flag graduation, for an hour as everyone was, standing there waiting for graduation to start. They would play those music videos back to back. We Are the Auditors, We Stand Tall. I mean, it's really, look, Scientology is good at one thing, and that's producing AV content.
It got me right here.
Yeah.
Really got me.
They're not
It
good
was
at clearing.
touching.
They're not good at clearing the planet. They're not good at keeping families or marriages together. They're not good at public relations, but they are good at creating high
Cheesy
quality
videos.
AV content.
It's pretty cheesy. I mean, it was cheesy, but I used to really
Did you not think
VHS.
Did you not think David Pomerantz was a pretty gifted singer? Not Jeff Pomerantz, David Pomerantz. Jeff Pomerantz is the cheesy Scientology voiceover guy. It doesn't get much worse than that. David Pomerantz is the one that sang "We Are the Auditors." We Stand Tall.
Oh, okay, yeah, he had a good voice. I think I'm Facebook friends with that guy.
Yeah, you probably are. He was a big deal in the Philippines. He was like Elvis. He was like Elvis Presley in the Philippines. He was huge in the Philippines.
Seriously? Wow. Is he still alive?
I think that he is. I think he is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can't believe you know that video. Nobody remembers it. Remember there was like 1,000 auditors carrying their briefcases, and
I even distinctly remember the face of the one auditor who walks up and he stops for a second and he looks into the sunlight and then he keeps walking.
gives you chills.
I bet Mark Headley knows who that guy is. We need to. Mitch Brisker would know who that guy is. We got to do a thing with Mitch. We have to find these Scientology music videos and do reactions to them.
Can't be found. I've been looking for it for years.
Hey, all you under the radar Scientologists, get your hands on a copy of We Stand Tall and We Are the Auditors and send it to me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com.
We Stand Tall is on YouTube.
Okay. It is?
Yeah,
okay,
I mean,
so
I was told. I haven't actually checked myself. Yes, I have.
Okay.
I'm lying.
Well, of course it is, right? Of course it is.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
That's right. Oh, you know what I did? I did a video where first I played the Saturday, did you see the Saturday night spoof on the We Stand Tall video?
Yes. What's it called?
It's called Neurotology.
Yes.
Neurotology.
They did a good job.
I tried to do a video of showing that one and then showing the real one. And I got a copyright strike from Saturday Night Live.
Wow.
And I probably could have combated that one. It's the only copyright strike I ever chose not to fight. It was actually a takedown request, not a copyright strike. Anyhow, yeah, so if you're out there, you got to get your hands on the We Are the Auditors Scientology music video and smuggle it to us so that we can have fun with it. That would be really appreciated.
It's so fun. It is such a good time, you guys. I wish we could play it for you.
Oh, so check this out. Wow. Seneca is being so kind here. She is giving the name of the channel for Cindy Plahuta's SPTV cooking channel. Okay, so Cece's Comfort Cooking is Cindy Plahuta's. Now, I want to go back to the beginning of the chat and pull up, since she's being so kind by giving the other channel. Let me go back to the beginning and show her channel. Holy shit, there's a lot of chat. It's taking me forever to scroll up.
There is a lot.
Oh my God, there's got to be a better way. Okay, I reached the top, everybody. Oh my God. I really have a phobia about dead air. I cannot stand sitting here without speaking. It makes me extremely anxious. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay, so we have Sinful Good. Sinful Good is Seneca's channel.
Sinfully
and
good.
And then CC's Comfort Cooking is the other one. Bada bing. Thank you for that, Seneca. Much appreciated. Okay, so actually, I'm glad this question is coming up because we are about to have a massive fundraising scandal. The Aftermath Foundation is about to be completely embroiled and exposed for a fundraising scandal. And I might as well come clean about this right now, guys. For a month now, I have been saying that when I hit 170,000 subscribers, I'm going to donate $500 to the foundation. A whole bunch of other people have pledged to partially match or match the donation. I said, I think we're going to be able to raise like $10,000. I am so close to that target right now. Let me pull it up. I am only 250 subscribers away from that goal. But here's the scandal, guys. If you haven't already heard, we've been telling you for months now that this Aftermath Foundation documentary, documenting the story of one particular individual that the Aftermath Foundation has been able to help. This documentary is coming out on like Friday or Saturday. So if I hit my goal either on the same day or even the same week that this thing comes out, we are going to have no idea how much money we were able to raise by hitting this target, because this documentary is going to be launched across several channels as a fundraiser. And I'll be shocked if it doesn't raise hundreds of thousands of dollars worldwide for the Aftermath Foundation.
Wow.
Because it's mind blowing. I mean, it's an incredible thing. And YouTube only pays out once a month. So like all money donated to the foundation is going to be direct deposited into the foundation's account like 4 weeks, essentially 4 weeks from today. There will be no way, it won't even be possible to know how many donations came from the subscriber game. So it's imperative that I make this target today or tomorrow, but possibly today. So guys, if you're one of the 1,400 people watching live, please just check my channel. If you're actually not already subscribed, which you might not be, just hit that subscribe button for me. Because we're so damn close. We're so damn close. Okay, Joni Cummings, Reese and Aaron, I'm leaving Mormonism. Wow. It is a cult, just a different flavor of cult. Aaron, I know you had cults to consciousness. I am from the same area as her. Reese, stay beautiful. Love your stories.
Oh, I remember Joni.
You do?
Oh, yeah. She was on our live stream the other night on Monday.
Oh, yeah.
I think I called her a little baby button nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember her.
So, Joni, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Joni, I'll tell you what. Joni, if you are interested in talking about your story, and if you'd like to do a video with me about it, just let me know. Send me an email, growingupinscientology@gmail.com. And of course, Shalise is fantastic. I mean, she really has one of the best programs out there, in my opinion. She's great.
I'm happy for her. That's great.
Joni, I feel bad. I feel like you've probably said that to me before and it's never quite clicked. But now that I feel like I know you more, because Joni's in the chat a lot. Joni's a frequent flyer. Yeah, let me know, Joni, if you want to talk. That would be interesting.
It would be.
Andrew Haig says SPTV parody of We Stand Tall.
Mm-hmm. That
would be pretty good. Lance Whitaker, please join Suppressology. Being a suppressologist is the way.
Nice word.
Okay. Hey, let's chat for a little bit about kids being forced to do courses in auditing. This also ties into something that people ask about a lot, which is, I thought Scientologists, like their number one priority, they were supposed to get up the bridge. Why is it that so many former Scientologists are like nowhere on the bridge? Like Reese, what's the highest thing you ever, did we already talk about this on Monday? What's the highest bridge step you ever attested to?
Probably my most recent would be SRD, but then I went above that. I did happiness rundown, drug rundown. Is that above SRD?
Mm-hmm.
I was right before the grades.
Okay. Yeah. So happiness rundown, drug rundown.
But that's
so,
the processing side. The training side, I would probably be pro TRs.
Yeah. The processing side is really normally what people mean when they say go up the bridge, right? So, and so you were HR, happiness rundown or drug rundown. The highest bridge step I ever attested to completing was, I'm not kidding, the purification rundown. I've never even done the objectives because I started the bridge, quote unquote, when I was so young, had no drug history, and my personality test was all above the center line. So according to the rules that the case supervisors were going by at that time, if you had no drug history and your personality test was above the center line on all points, you did not have to do any of the drug handling steps. So I've had a bunch of auditing. I've had a bunch of sec checking. I mean, I did the Key to Life clay table, Pro TR's clay table, LOC clay table. Some people consider that Scientology considers that auditing, at least.
It's a big deal,
I've had
actually.
several int rundowns. I've had a lot of sec checking. I've had FPRD. I've had a lot of life repair, quadroods and overits, a ton of correction lists, but I've never had any actual bridge auditing. And the reason I'm mentioning that is because as a child, I knew I did not want auditing because of all the crazy sex shit I would hear people discussing in their auditing sessions in the co-audit area of the course room. I was like, what? What? I would go look up the bulletins to see what the hell, why were they doing that shit? And I was like, oh, no, thank you, sir. I will have none of that. I was like, I'm not talking about any of that shit. Are you kidding me? I mean, as a kid, it was the idea of having to talk about this kind of stuff is absolutely humiliating. I would be in the course room, and in the co-audit course room, you have people doing these objectives processes being like, touch that table. Thank you. Touch your anus. I'm like, touch what? Huh? No, thank you. Touch. And then you were like, we were having this conversation earlier today. And you were like, yeah, this is literally the auditing process. Go ahead.
This was the literal.
Go ahead. You can say it.
Oh, it's not that I'm embarrassed to say it. I'll talk about my cooter all day long.
Oh,
So I was literally in session in a co-audit in the course room, you guys, which is the cheaper version of auditing. You're not paying for professional auditing in often a closed room where the auditor is uncontrollable flatulence. You are because that was my experience. You are in a course room with other people, like lots of people. I'm in this course room, and again, I'm not shy. I'm not shy about anything. This guy, this grown ass man who I don't know, I'm just twinned up with him. He's like, touch that chair. Good. Now touch your labia. I was like, first of all, you're getting pretty technical with the words. I've already had my pap smear. You're not a doctor. We're not. How am I supposed to get it out? It was so uncomfortable. And
he's like, I said, touch it. I said, touch it, not play with it. Okay.
Meanwhile, there's people everywhere, and it's hard to make me feel uncomfortable. And I was like, can you wait? Don't repeat the auditing command, but did you just say what I thought you said? And we had to do that. We had to do that process. And I'm like, what's he going to say next? Like, touch that table. Good. Take this pencil and paper clip and perform a colonoscopy. Good. I was so weirded out by that. That is not uncommon.
He's like, touch your anus. He's like, yeah, get in there 2 knuckles deep. Oh, yeah, just like that. I'll repeat the auditing command. And it's like, I swear to God, when I first heard people doing those kind of auditing commands on the objectives, I was like, does it just tell you that you can say whatever you want and these people are choosing to be disgusting and gross, or are they specifically instructed to do that? And so I went and dug up the bulletin and I looked at the reference, and it specifically says that you are supposed to use parts of the body that are private or they would be ashamed about. And I'm like, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For a woman, it's even weird. I mean, there's only so many places you can go on a guy, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I remember him being like, touch your left breast. And I was like, look, I at least want to get paid to do this. I'm not giving it away for free. Okay. I want to get some sort of form of payment for this. But seriously, that was not uncommon, even with kids. being in the course room. And that part to me isn't funny. That's weird. I mean, that's
So
just
that's where we're going with this. There's no distinction in Scientology between kids and adults. There's no, if you're on course, you're on course. There's no kids course room. There's no kids like it's the same thing. And nobody would ever say, we can't do this auditing today. There's a child on course. That's unheard of. No, you'd never hear anyone say that in a Scientology organization.
I don't even know that they use the word child. I mean, I don't even know that they recognize children so much. I don't.
Yeah. So Casey says this self-touching auditing routine is weird, and it's the first time I've heard of it. It's funny that you mentioned that, Casey, because now that I've said this, if I were to have a chat with Serge would probably be like, "Oh yeah, of course." It's just that the other stuff we're talking about is even more disgusting. This stuff never even came up, because the other stuff that that I was talking about, for example, with Serge, is like when you're specifically interrogating someone about matters of a sexual nature. In the objectives, this is considered perfectly normal in Scientology. This isn't even considered gross. In fact, I've always wondered if I was the only one who had a problem with it, because I've never even heard anyone else say that they had a problem with these objectives processes. I've never heard it come up.
Well, think about it. I mean, I don't think too many people were smart enough not to voice it, right? I wouldn't be surprised if other people had issues with it, but what are they going to do? Question LRH? I mean, it's straight from LRH policy. So
Yeah.
I would be surprised. I mean, there's probably a lot of policies that, like we're talking about, where people are like, yeah, I don't agree with that, but no one's going to speak it.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I think I've alluded to this before, but so my wife and I, our first daughter was born in 2008, 2002, no, 2007. Oh shit. How am I going to forget this? 2006. Okay. So my first daughter was born in 2006, second daughter born in 2008, third daughter born in 2010. We were not officially out of Scientology until 2014. So for 8 years, we had kids while we were still Scientologists. And yet there was something about my and my wife's Scientology experience that we had an unspoken agreement, meaning we never actually had a conversation about this, that our experience was such, there was no part of us that was willing to expose our kids to Scientology. It's actually crazy to say this, because you'd think, wow, that sounds like you guys must have had a conversation about that, right? No,
Wow.
it never came up, except we both seemed to be on the same. There was never, oh, we should put the kids on course. Oh, we should send the kids to Mace Kingsley. Oh, no, they'd never even freaking heard the word Scientology, because we knew we're kind of like, hey, we sort of came out of this like kind of okay, but we ain't doing this with our kids.
You're not going to subject them to it. That's how I felt. I feel bad that I took Huxley I would go to weekly events. I mean, I was always going to events, and I would take him and let him go into the room with the other kids to play while the event was playing. That's as far as it went. I feel bad about that. I even exposing him to that. Now, I'm glad that it didn't get worse for him, and, we allowed it to get worse, but still, looking back on it, I wish I would have done what you guys did.
Yeah. The most that we ever did was take our kids to play at the pool at the Fort Harrison, because that was acceptable for a while. They were trying to be family friendly, kids friendly, not force everyone to constantly be on course. And so we were still flying under the radar, taking our kids to, Friday night playing the Fort Harrison pool, but that didn't last long.
Yeah.
Did you have any other weird kid auditing? But so when you were the scenario that you had, where you were getting those objectives processes, how old would you have been?
I was in I think like early 20s.
Okay. How old was your auditor?
Oh God. 60s.
I bet he was having a good time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I can remember being much younger. Of course, Aaron, I was on staff at 13. So technically that's a kid, right? Yeah. So I did pro TRs, and I was doing TRs with grown men bull baiting. And I mean, it seems like the guys would always go super sexual with bull baiting.
Oh, I think it's just because they knew they could get away with it. It was like, oh, I can say whatever I want, and not only will I not get in trouble, people will say I'm doing a good job.
Yeah, they're going to say I'm really good at bull baiting. And, the more I would squirm or be uncomfortable and show that I'm uncomfortable. At 13, I was uncomfortable. It's like they would get more of a rise out of it. And then you flunk and you have to flatten it. So you have to keep doing the same thing over until I'm not uncomfortable, which was hard to do. I mean, probably I was shy at 13, and I don't feel that I was as bold then. You know, I don't know. I go back and forth on this, like, guilt wise. I'm like, why didn't any of us stand up? Like, why didn't any of us say anything when we did see that shit going on?
It's not against the Scientology philosophy.
I know. But, like, underneath, I knew it was wrong.
You'd even get in trouble for bringing it up, for thinking according to WOG mentality. Like, what are you talking about? You're invalidating that child by calling them a child. That child is a being.
Right.
How dare you?
I know.
How dare you invalidate that child?
But it was weird thinking about it now, how it seems like they would jump to being sexual.
It's true. And they would bring in whoever they thought was willing to be the most perverted. Some of the people would relish it.
Yep.
I remember. I mean, one of the craziest things I remember, there was this guy who was the Purify C at the org. His name was David Santiago at the Philadelphia org, and he just loved bull baiting women. He grew up in South Philly, and he was kind of his moonlight job was he was a valet at the Hyatt Hotel in downtown Philly. And so what he would do is he would, because he was a staff member, he'd always be wearing a shirt and a tie, right?
Mm-hmm.
But he would come up to the course and like, oh, we need to bring Dave up to bull bait a woman. And he would come up and he would undo his shirt and he would take off his tie and he would put it around his head backwards like Rambo. And then he would pretend to just eat her out for like 20 minutes.
Oh yeah, my God.
They giggled or got embarrassed. And this is in front of a course room full of people. I mean, it's like there could be 20 or 30 people listening to this. And that was considered excellent Scientology bull baiting.
He should be castrated with fishing knives.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
Yeah. And when we're talking about this auditing, think about this, guys. Think about this. Think about a 14 or 15-year-old girl having to be the auditor, or boy for that matter, and doing these processes on an adult, a 40 or 50-year-old adult of the opposite sex, and actually thinking that it was okay to put a child in that position. So that is normal shit in Scientology. And that is why we keep talking about kids. You know?
Yeah. I'm still stuck on what you just said. I did not see anybody get to that extreme. What I would see people do was be sexual in their words, bull baiting, not like pretending to be doing.
No, he'd put his face right up to their lap. I mean, he wouldn't make physical contact.
Well, you couldn't be physical.
Well, the other person is just sitting there straight up in a chair, hands out,
right.
On their knees, and his head's like right in her lap, as close as you can get without making physical contact. Just like he'd be like, ah, and then he'd be like, oh, that was delicious. I'm going in for more. Oh. that was normal. That was normal Scientology bull baiting. And there's no rules. Like if David Santiago was going to do that to, I don't know, a teenage girl doing the Pro TRs course, there would be no rules against it. It would be considered high gradient bull baiting. In fact, this happened. Dan O'Connor did this. Dan O'Connor was at Flag. He was bull baiting Carlos Casas, the senior CS of the Barcelona org, on the Pro TRs. And this is when they actually would allow some physical contact. So Dan would scoot forward and put his legs over Carlos's legs and loudly act like he was humping Carlos and say, I'm creaming in my briefs. I'm creaming in my briefs. That was just good. That was just considered high gradient bull baiting.
Dan O'Connor would do things like that. That sounds just like Dan O'Connor to me, what you just did.
Yeah, he'd probably do that at a staff meeting. I mean, Dan's a sicko.
I am super, it really is hard to get me to feel uncomfortable. That is so uncomfortable. And if that guy is still alive, I really hope that the forces of evil find their way to his front door.
Oh, Dan? Or
No,
Santiago? David.
both, definitely both. But this David guy, like, it just as a woman, like, I'm glad that never happened because think of what that will do to you. I just think of like being a woman and having that happen going forward. That is so damaging. That is so fucking abusive to allow any man to do that to a woman in a course room with people
Yeah.
watching is like, it's like torture to me. Like you might as
Yeah.
well abduct her and tie her to a chair against her will. That's so sick. Fuck, I'm really disturbed by this.
Let's think for a second about what this all means for what it means to be a Scientology auditor and what you're trained that you're supposed to put up with.
Right.
In a Scientology auditing session, you are trained there is nothing the pre-clear can say or do to you that would make it okay for you to respond in a negative way. It doesn't matter if this person is telling you the nitty-gritty details of how they sexually abused their own child last night. You are supposed to, in a natural, relaxed, and friendly way, say, "Thank you for telling me that. Is there
That's true.
anything more about that you haven't told me yet? What else did you do? How long did this go on for? How exactly did your child respond to that?" And just be natural, relaxed, and friendly. You're not allowed to make them feel bad. You're not allowed to stop the auditing session. And this is why the idea of letting children train as auditors or even encouraging them to train as auditors is in some ways even worse than allowing children to receive auditing. This is an aspect of Scientology you've never heard in the press. The press doesn't really give a shit about anything but Tom Cruise. You know,
Right.
you never heard about this shit on 2020. You know what I'm saying?
I heard everything you just said, but I'm still so grossed out by this dude, this guy. And I want to ask about that. What he did during that bull bait session to that woman. Let's think about why he did that for a minute going forward, because you're training auditors. That's why you're doing that. You're training them to be able to experience anything, to handle anything, right? How is that shit even going to go on in an auditing session? I've had thousands of hours of auditing. Every time I was just a normal person doing what I'm doing now, sitting and talking. I didn't jump out of my chair and try to get between someone's legs like some creepy monster. I didn't do like, you know what I mean? Like the physical side of like the bull baiting and the walk over to that wall and like shoving people into the wall. Why is that even necessary? Is that for making
It's
people get auditing
true.
against their will? Who is in a room auditing, tearing off their clothes or trying to rape someone?
It's true. But let's emphasize though, Scientologists are encouraged to do this training whether they plan on being a professional auditor or not. I mean,
That's right.
Scientology says that doing auditor training trains you for life.
That's true.
And a lot of people do auditor training who have no intention of being an auditor. A lot of people do
That's
pro
true.
TRs who never go on to do auditor training.
I did. Yeah, I was not ever going to be an auditor. I never wanted to be an
Yeah.
auditor, but I did. You're right. I know that they say that that's for life, just to have that under your belt is just so that you'll have a successful life because you're pro at doing TRs. That was really disturbing. I hadn't seen anything like that in a course room. I mean, the guy telling me touch your labia, I just was like, what? I mean, it made me uncomfortable. But if somebody had done what that guy did, I think I would have reared up my foot and kicked him in the fucking face as hard as I could. I wouldn't be able to sit there and let someone do that to me.
I was just reminded of something. The objectives auditing that you were getting, was it a two-way, a co-audit you were receiving and giving alternatively?
Originally on objectives, yes, I had an actual twin. We were co-auditing. The second time was I was being one-wayed, which means receiving,
But,
not
but,
co.
but you did the training on how to administer.
Of course.
Do you remember what would have happened if the auditor gave you that command and you did not comply for any reason, whether it was
100%
embarrassment?
I do. The auditor
What would the
grab
auditor have done?
The auditor would take my hand and make me do it with his hand.
That's right. That's right. And people are putting fucking kids into that situation. It's absolutely fucking disgusting.
God, I don't ever think about this stuff, and it's look, I'm reading some of these comments. I know you guys are uncomfortable. I have to be honest. It's hard to make me uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable. I'm with you guys. I totally agree. Everything here was dark and uncomfortable, but it's also what's going on. And by talking about it, we're exposing it. Hopefully this video gets shared and shared and shared. And like Aaron's right, this doesn't get talked about in the media. It's Tom Cruise and Top Gun. So
yeah,
as hard as it is to deal with, it's a serious form of abuse. And I think that we're doing our part by even talking about it. You guys are doing your part by sharing it, getting it exposed. I don't know what else to do.
There's some comments here that there's something we should help explain here. First of all, for Koala Lou, if the woman reacted, would she be subjected to more of the same?
Yes.
Absolutely. That's the point
Over
of
and
the bull
over.
baiting.
Until she doesn't react anymore.
Until she doesn't react anymore. Now, Lori Plays is asking, I thought there was no physical touching. Lori, we're talking about two different things, actually. The David Santiago pretending to go down on ladies, that's bull baiting. That's a communication drill where you're supposed to find things to get the person to react until they no longer react. What Reese was talking about was an objectives auditing session. Now, in objectives auditing, there is physical touching. The auditor will physically enforce compliance with the auditing command if the pre-clear does not carry out the command.
That's not just auditing, though, Aaron. That's a TR.
Go ahead.
That's like what is that? TR 6, 7, or 8? That's a TR.
That's right. TR 6, 7, and 8 there. Well, TR 7 and 9 has a lot of physical touching. Actually, strong physical touching.
Yes.
So that's right. That's right. Most people who've heard us talk about the TRs and bull baiting, those are TRs 0 to 4. TRs 6 to 9 are the one that involve walking over to walls, touching walls. But Reese, even here, we're going to confuse people because objectives auditing sessions involves walking over, touching objects, walls, tables, things in the environment. And it's hard for people who don't know the difference between regular TRs, upper indoctrination TRs, and TRs and objectives auditing. It all sounds the same. So Lori, yes, the upper TRs, which is 6, there's no TR 5. So 6, 7, 8, and 9. 7 and 9 involve physical touching. And it's okay. And objectives auditing requires a lot of physical touching.
Right.
And
so just not to confuse people, there's TRs where there's physical touching in order to train for the auditing, where they will say, do this and give a command. And if you don't do it, the auditor will take you to do it, whether it's you touching something or sometimes like a command, TR is walk over to that wall. You're not touching the wall. They're just asking you to walk over to it. If I just stand there, and this is part of the training, I've done this. I've had 6'5" guys grab me and push me over to the wall, like shove me to the wall. Basically, we're going to walk you to that wall if you don't do it under the command. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
And so as a child, when I would see these bulletins that describe these procedures, and I would see, you mentioned very specifically, touch your left breast. Thank you. What's the actual objectives command? Touch that table. You're supposed to touch an inanimate object. You're supposed to alternatively, and this is one particular objectives process, alternatively touch the physical object and then touch some embarrassing part of your body. I still could not tell you what the purpose of this fucking auditing process was, but it's like, so, and guys, this auditing process would go on for hours. We're not talking minutes. We're talking hours. No.
Day after day. I mean, I would be training on course from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. You would do that all day. on different slots. You get out for lunch, you take a break at 3:30, but you do that all day long.
Yeah.
Because they're training auditors, right? Training for what? Who the hell is going to say? I mean, if you're actually in session, right? And there are some sessions where you're walking, you're moving, you're not just sitting in a chair. If you're in session and the auditor's doing some kind of an assist or something on you and says, do this, what person is going to be like, no, make me?
Right.
What? Nobody does that.
And let's remind everybody, once you're in an auditing session as a pre-clear, the person receiving the auditing, you are not allowed to end that session. It is not under your control, and the auditor is not allowed to allow you to end the session. You're not allowed to go to the auditor. Okay, can we end session, please? Can we end session? Can we end session right now? Can we end session? And then the auditor goes, okay, end of session. You will get in so much trouble. It's considered the most egregious violation of the auditor code to permit a pre-clear to end the session. And so if you start this process, okay, touch that table. Okay, touch your nipple. And you're like, oh no, come on. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. The auditor is going to grab you, grab your hand, get you to make contact, and then say, thank you. Touch that table. Thank you. Touch your nipple. Oh no, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. They're going to make you do it again. I mean, explaining this like, I don't. What the fuck is the? What do Scientologists even think is being accomplished by this? I never knew.
Right, because there's nothing to make sense of there, and I mean, I'm just I'm bothered by this because the kids aspect of it, but also just I don't know. I just, as a woman, I speak on the women's side of things. That is so uncomfortable. That is so awkward. And it makes me feel sad about it. I just think, what could we do about that? What can we do about it?
Yeah. I think that as a child, since so much of my childhood was actively avoiding major parts of Scientology that I did not want to participate in, I think that's why there was no part of me that even considered for a second letting my kids do Scientology, even when I was still a quote unquote true believer. I was just like, I was like, I barely got through, guy. I barely made it through without having to participate in all that shit. And so when I say I never did my objectives, I remember when I was told, you're not going to have to do your objectives because you don't have any drug history. I remember the feeling of relief washing over me because I never knew how I would make it through.
Yeah. That's sick.
And Scientology parents know goddamn well that this is what Scientology auditing is. And yet you still have a school, what they call it a school, a field group called Mace Kingsley in Clearwater, Florida here. And I think they have it in Los Angeles as well. Mace Kingsley is where Scientologists send their little children to get auditing. Now, what kind of fucking sicko says, I want to be a professional Scientology auditor, but you know what I want to specialize in? Little kids.
I just deleted one last night. I was going through my Facebook list and do you know who she is? That Diane Norgard or Norbird? She's a huge auditor at Mace Kingsley.
Let me look it up.
I just deleted her last night because I thought don't need you on my
How do you spell the last name?
I'm going to look. There she is. Diane Norgard, Norgard. She's a Mace Kingsley auditor.
Oh my God, she looks. Oh, if I showed her photo, which I'm not going to do because people will.
I was going to flash it up. Never mind.
I mean, look, normally I would, but I guarantee you Scientology will try to strike this video and it'll create a problem. But anyone watching, guys, just look Diane D. Norgard, Norgard. She looks like a Scientology auditor who would go, you know what I want to do? I want to specialize in little kitties. She looks just like that.
Yeah.
You guys know what I mean.
It's not good. Yeah. As far as I
So
know,
anyway,
Mace Kingsley is pretty successful.
they make
That's where all the
tons of
rich
money.
people. Yeah, that's where the rich
They
people
make
take their kids.
tons of money auditing little kiddos. Now, I would love to ask some of those Scientology parents, I wonder why you're sending them to Mace Kingsley instead of to the local org. I don't know. As a Scientology, what would you think? What incentive would a Scientology parent have to send? Oh, is it because Mace Kingsley goes, they super specialize in kids. They're extra good at it.
That's what I would think. I know Kathy sends her daughter there, or did. I also think it's a status thing. If you have a kid going to Mace Kingsley, it's like a kid going to Delphi. Like, you can afford it. It's a very expensive place to send your kid.
That makes sense. There's a lot of that status seeking.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Total status in Scientology.
Yeah. All right, let's tackle some of these other chats that I see here. Joni Cummings says, again, Aaron, I will send you an email when I get off work. Part of it is I never really believed the BS and was forced into it. Reese, I agree with what you said. Why would you give it up for free?
You can't just give up the goods for free, Joni. You know it. We both know it.
He's like, touch your left breast. And you're like, who's paying who here?
Yeah, no, you got to pay for that. It's not free.
Silver Dragon. I guess Hulk Hogan and Sky Daly are getting married. I saw it in the news just for info's sake. Hulk Hogan going to be a Scientologist? Yes, I'll be taking that up in a video. Stay tuned for that. It's going to be very awkward at Thanksgiving dinner to have Sky Daly's father, Kirk Burness, a Scientology child molester, sitting around the Thanksgiving table. So that's really disappointing to me. I'm sure Hulk Hogan hasn't asked about that at all, but he watches these videos. That's for sure. Paula Puffer, this is beyond inexcusable. Yeah, it really is. Black Cat Maggie, this is one of the most real dark conversations, but you're delivering it quite well. Thank you.
That's nice. Yeah.
Thank you. Robert Paulson, this must be so hard for y'all to discuss. Thank you for sharing. Hoping for nothing but healing and love for you.
That's nice.
I'll tell you,
and
it's
he's
funny.
right.
Like, it's only through the distance and the benefit of hindsight that I'm actually able to look back on this and appreciate how damaging and destructive it is to those who have to participate in it. At the time, it was me who felt bad about me for not wanting to do these things that everyone else seemed to think was totally fine. Yeah. I remember thinking, like, how can it just be me? How can I be the only one that seems to be completely repulsed at the idea of this? I refuse to even supervise the objectives co-audits. I was like, someone else can do it, because I'm like, I didn't want to be involved in it in any way, not on flow 1, flow 2, or flow 3, as they would say in Scientology. Mm-hmm. Because it was but here's the thing, here's the key. Because I found it humiliating, not because I thought it was wrong. That's a distinction. You know what I'm saying? I was like, I would feel humiliated having to deliver, receive, or supervise it. It was, I felt bad. It's not that, oh, I don't want to be involved in hurting others. No one seemed to think that there was anything wrong with this shit.
That's so true.
How about,
I can't, I mean, Brenda, my mother-in-law, was the course soup at the time. I mean, we had a pretty close relationship. Like, even her, like, nobody. I mean, I can even think of, like, him saying, "Good, now touch your labia," and Brenda being like, "Hey, so let's deliver that a little bit more clearly," and, like, correcting the guy on it. Like, nobody felt like it was wrong. I see what you're saying. It's like nobody even blinked an eye at that. God, I'm really bothered by this.
So your auditor was acting a little embarrassed in the delivery of the auditing command, and your mom, the supervisor,
she was telling him to be more direct about it. Yeah. As the course soup. I mean, I haven't thought about this for a long time. And I'm glad we're doing these videos, because it's not all going to be funny. It's not all going to be just silly stuff that we all laugh about. I mean, this is some dark, hardcore stuff that we need to talk about. Well, kind of like my story. I mean, I would have never talked about it, but I'm glad I did, because now that I think about it, this is nuts. It needs to be put out there. And hopefully
Yeah.
they'll go to court for it or jail. That would be great.
Yeah. I think it is helpful to discuss it in conversations that are kind of a mixture of light and heavy, you
Yes.
know, light and dark. We try not to be too serious and doomsday-ish and woe is me-ish about these kind of things. But I only discuss these things not because of woe is me. You guys know I almost never talk about my own story. I want people to understand that this is what Scientology is.
Yes. 100%.
This is what it
going on
means
right
to
now.
put. Oh, that's right. And I wanted to link it to that fucking story of that Sea Org fundraiser being like, I recognize him. He was in the Sea Org with me. This pressure that's put on Scientology kids to
Yeah.
be reincarnated past life Scientologists. And one of the best ways to demonstrate, or for a parent to prove that, yes, their kid is a reincarnated Scientologist, is to have them start doing Scientology auditing training at a very young age, because obviously that proves they already did this in the last lifetime, and that's why it's
They're
so easy
picking
for
it
them to
back
do
up.
it now.
Yeah, they're just picking it back up. Yeah.
All this combines into the perfect storm for a child.
It does. It does. If you really think about that too, I don't know how many kids were born around you when you were a Scientologist. There was quite a few kids born around me. My brother and sister-in-law. I had another kid recently back when I was still in. And that's the first thing they do too. Do you ever notice that? Who died at Flag recently? Who died recently? Like, it's an automatic that person's just recycling back in from. They just assume that child is this, already trained up person. They're just going to shove back into it. And that's really unfair to the damn kid. You're right.
That's
It's
right.
the perfect storm. It's sick. It is. I can't tell. I mean, my whole upbringing in Scientology, somebody would be born and they'd be like, who just died?
In fact, you want to talk about what a small world it is. When my wife was having our second daughter, it was Dan O'Connor himself who was in town for some reason, because we used to be friends. I mean, we'd hang out whenever he came to town. Who was trying to help guide a Thetan to pick up our soon-to-be newborn daughter's body. There was this whole thing he did with Heather, this whole conversation or whatever, or chat or agreement they had, that he was going to help strike a deal with some Scientology muckety muck that was about to die to go and pick up our daughter's body. It's like, oh, thank you, Dan. Could you please? So that we can spend her whole life telling her who we think she is because of your stupid fucking conversation. Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much.
That's just a regular ass Tuesday in Scientology. I have seen so many OT8s be like, we need to do this. Isn't there an assist for when you're dying to leave the body, to get them to leave the body?
Kind of. Yeah.
I've heard people talk about that many times, like trying to get them to leave because this person's pregnant and you need to go pick up that body. It's just a business. It's like a business relationship. There's no sadness to it. There's no anything. It's like, we're going to need you to die because this person's due next month. Like, it's almost like a carrot dangling.
Well, Reese, I mean, you want to talk about a segue. You told me about a funeral. I guess we should call it a celebration of life that was held recently in Kansas City for a Kansas City executive who was on this full-time training program at Flag to go back and become the executive director of the Kansas City org. And she, spoiler alert, dropped dead. She died. She died at Flag. And they held a funeral, a celebration of life at the Kansas City org. Everyone was instructed they were not allowed to cry. They were given, tell everyone, what were they given?
They were, you guys, they were given, this is not that long ago. Did you preface that, Aaron?
This was within the year.
I looked at the video I have on it. It was from 2022. Okay. This is a person that died that I've known my whole life. I lived with her when I came to be on staff. I was pretty close to this person, I would say. She just
We can say her
died.
name. We can say her name so that people know who we're talking about.
Liz Carr.
Elizabeth Carr. Liz Carr. Okay.
Yeah. Really big deal in Kansas City just because she'd been on staff forever. Her husband is Alex Carr. He was the qualification secretary of Division 5 forever. Mixed emotions about Liz. Some people loved her, some people didn't. I got along with her after I was on staff. I did not get along with her on staff. I don't know why I'm rambling about this, but I feel like she deserves this to kind of go into the what I'm about to say. She was actually a great lady after I left staff. As I grew into being an adult, had Huxley, she would come visit me pretty often. She loved Huxley. I liked Liz. She was training at Flag a year ago and said she would. I got all of this from Brenda, my mother-in-law. Brenda and Liz were sharing a room at Flag. Liz tells Brenda, I'm not feeling right. This goes on for about 24 hours. A Sea Org member took her and dropped her off at a hospital. Brenda was not allowed to go. Nobody was allowed to go because of all the COVID restrictions. Dropped her off. Okay. I think within one day, she died. She was severely dehydrated, so they first diagnosed her. And then she went into cardiac arrest. No family there, no friends. This woman just died. How awful.
Her husband wasn't even told that she had gone to the hospital.
Nope. And she has a daughter that I grew up with, Abby, that she hadn't seen in what, Aaron, a couple of years because she'd been on the training program. Mm-hmm. And just dies, just drops dead. I remember Brenda calling me and she goes, and it was a weird time. Brenda was supposed to be on course, right? And she calls me on some random day and she's like, I need you to sit down. Are you sitting down? And I'm thinking, she's going to tell me that my dad died. Like, I was kind of almost like, wow, he finally, she told me that Liz died. She gave me all the details I just gave you guys. And I really cried. I was really sad about this because the woman was alone. That's how all this time, I mean, think about this for a minute, you guys. How old? Liz was 61. She's been on staff since I was born. Okay. So I'm 39. She puts all this fucking time in, all this loyalty to this church. And where is she? Dropped off at a hospital and alone. They don't tell her family, by herself. Her husband can't even fly there because he doesn't know. That's so sad to me. That's so depressing. So anyway, this woman dies and I was pretty devastated. And of course, I hadn't been going much to the org in 2022, last year. I hadn't been going much to the org. But for Liz, of course, I was going to go to her funeral. I wanted to be there for her funeral. I wasn't comfortable. A lot of people, of course, you go to the org, you know, where you been? Let's get you signed up. I mean, that's, they just clamor to get to you because you're public and they just, especially if you've been in for a while, they just were all over me. So I'm at this funeral and I can't tell you how uncomfortable this was. I'm sitting at a table with Doug and Brenda and some other people. I'm toward the front of the room. It's the what is that room?
The chapel.
The chapel. And they start this funeral by saying, we are not going to cry in this funeral. No sadness allowed. They're real chipper, right? Like cheerleaders. No sadness. And they pick up these clapper things that you get at like a parties warehouse store. And she goes, this is Maggie talking, the EDKC. She picks up this clapper and she goes, if you'll notice, and they're big round tables everybody's sitting at, she goes, the clappers are on your tables. And then they also have those whistles from like New Year's Eve that people get. They're all at every table.
You blow it and it unrolls and it
that kids use. Yeah.
The New Year's Eve noisemakers.
The annoying noisemakers that kids use. And you're like, shut that thing up. So those are all sitting at the table. And she goes, if we see any sadness, I want everybody to pick up your clappers and blow your little thing. Kazoo. There you go. And I'm like, this is not fucking happening. There's no way this is happening. This is so disrespectful and inappropriate. Okay. For a funeral, I was blown away. And there's a lot of people there. The room was packed. So Brenda goes up to talk. Brenda is my mother-in-law. Brenda was the DED, the Deputy Executive Director. Liz was the Executive Director. That's a close role. They're pretty much, that's her wing person. You know, they kind of worked very close. Brenda worked with Liz on staff forever. Brenda goes up, and of course, she's keeping her TRs in, right? She's being real solid and joyful. And she's like, I was with Liz and she goes to talk, and she's like, and all I want to say, and she like starts to break down like you would at a funeral. Oh my God. Maggie Kittinger cuts her off and goes, no. Everybody. Oh, I'll mute it. Sorry, I did that because of my dog.
Well, if you mute yourself, then now you can't talk anyway.
I know, but you told me to mute it if he barks. Come here, Bo. Bobo, come here. It's okay. It was me. I'm so sorry I did that to you. I woke you up.
That's okay. We love barking dogs.
Yeah, and he's cute. It's okay. So she interrupts Brenda and she goes, everybody use your clappers. And everybody starts doing that. And I'm like fuming. I'm starting to get more and more angry. I was like, so Brenda gets done with her talk. And so each person goes up after Brenda. And I'd say 15 people go up to talk, right? There's a ton of execs. There's a ton of staff that work with Liz forever. Every single one broke down and started to cry. And every single time, all this noise goes off. And I was so angry. One, because I couldn't hear what they were saying. I'm enjoying the stories they're telling and like talking about Liz. And the second a tear is shed, people start banging on the tables and they're clapping. And I'm like, this is insane. And so disrespectful to Liz. That was a long story, you guys. I'm sorry I drew that out. And then to top that off, Kathy Sullivan Otto is a very close friend of Liz's, right? Kathy was the OES, Liz was the ED. Kathy calls me and she's like, how are you doing about Liz? And I was like, I'm pretty upset. I'm sad. And she was like, Kathy's on OT7. And Kathy goes, well, I got in calm with her communication. And she goes, she just wanted to drop her body. 61 years old on this training program. So you're telling me married to David Sullivan. That was Kathy Sullivan. She was on this training program and she just decided she wanted to die. Right. That's the other weird part of when people die in Scientology. To make sense of it, we have to go, we got in touch with that person and they're doing great and they're going to pick up a new body at Flag and start over. Aaron, it's so weird and it's never made sense to me. And it angers me. It angers me when people do that.
Yeah. It's funny. Stories like this. Sometimes I will hear a non-Scientologist do a description or a criticism of Scientology that makes me sort of knee-jerk react and go, oh, that's not really true. And yet stories like this make me go, oh shit, but it is true, isn't it? And so when I hear people say, oh, in Scientology, you're trained to have no emotion, I've always had a knee-jerk reaction, like, that's not really true though. But it's like, but look, it is true. You're at a goddamn funeral and the rules are that you're not allowed to be sad. Who the fuck does that? Who thinks that's, why have a few, like, you showed me video that you took from this thing. Her husband got up there and acted like it was a variety show and told stories that everybody thought were hilarious about how they were always too busy on staff to remember it was their anniversary.
Yep.
And he'd be like, oh shit, I walked into the gas station and I saw a bucket of flowers and I was like, oh no, I forgot our anniversary again.
Yep.
But hey, you know what? I bought the flowers from the gas station and I gave her the flowers and she had forgotten too. Isn't that funny?
Hilarious.
We spend so much time working for this group. We don't even care about things like anniversaries. Isn't that hilarious? And then he got up and he sang a song that he
With a
wrote for
guitar.
her, and instead of everyone just like respectfully clapping out of emotion, they stood up and hooted and hollered like they were at a goddamn Taylor Swift concert.
Yeah, it was like in
'Cause
Vegas, and they
it
got
was-
the clappers. Yeah,
The clappers are going.
I sent you
and
the
you're
video.
like-
You could hear it.
You're like, what is going? Why
And
is
what
it
do you-
not okay to be sad?
And also, remember at the end of the song, he's talking about the whole song is like how much he loves her. And remember at the end, he says, like, but it's sad you had to die, but you went on to another game. Or you had a
Yeah,
bigger
it's like,
game.
I'll love you for as long as we both live or whatever. And I'm thinking, I guess not next lifetime, though.
No, just it pertains to this one.
Guess you had to be there.
Wrong
For a
audience.
Scientologist to write that song, I was like, shouldn't you have said for eternity? Why did you leave it to just this lifetime?
Yeah, it's just the disrespect of toward the person who died, and then speaking for them, saying, "Oh, they wanted to, and then I don't know, just the whole like now we're gonna guide him into some pregnant woman. I don't know. I have a weird point of view about death. We don't have to go into that right now, but it's not that, and it deserves a little bit more respect for me than that. I think because I worked in senior living, I've been to a million funerals. I didn't have to go to the funerals. I always went though, because I became so close. I became so close to all of those people immediately. And so I went to their funerals, and it's okay to be sad. It's okay to say goodbye and process it and be sad. And I just think I was so angry that people were just like, "Ah," and just, it was like, it felt so wrong to me. I was like, I'm trying to be sad here, and you guys are not allowing it. You're literally saying, no sadness. Like, that is so wrong.
Yeah. You were telling me about your first husband passed away, right?
My second husband.
Second husband. And instead of just treating it like something you'll need time to process and go through, they wanted to immediately take you into an auditing session to get you over the grief.
Mm-hmm.
And any Scientologist or former Scientologist watching this is going to relate to that, because it seems like grief and sadness is the only negative emotion you're not allowed to experience. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to scream. It's okay to yell. It's okay to hit.
It's okay to choke
sometimes.
people. Yeah, it's okay to throw shit at people. That's a good point.
But if you're sad, holy shit, are you downtone? Are you a fucking Debbie Downer? It's a weird thing.
So true.
It's a weird thing.
Like when he died, I was immediately pulled into the org and given an assist. I don't know if we want to go into that today or not. Or people getting bored?
We don't. No. That's not a problem at all. Go ahead. Help people understand. People hear about contact assist, touch assist, but so what's this assist? They wanted to give you an assist because your husband died.
So my husband died, and horrible, you guys. I'm not over that. I'm working through the what happened, being, the story coming out, losing all my family. That I can kind of get through. I still have a really hard time with the loss of him. I was crazy about that man, absolutely crazy about him. And he died, and Dan O'Connor reached out to me immediately. He did not know him. My husband's name was Fred. He did not know Fred. And he said, on Facebook, he saw that he died because I was posting funeral, arrangements on there and where to go. And he reaches out and he's like, I have an auditor set up and ready to go for you. I want to give you an assist, and I want to get you in session. So I went, and I don't know if you guys know, there's all kinds of assists in Scientology that don't include when you're sick or touching or anything like that. There's the regular assist, touch assists, a nerve assist. That's usually when a person is sick. Those don't work either, and they're bizarre. But
Keep
this assist
talking.
was-
I can hear you. Keep talking. I can hear. I'm going to switch my battery out.
all right.
I don't want you to stop talking. It's going to take me 10 seconds.
This reminds me of Jeff when he walks out of the room. He's like, keep talking. I'm listening. I'm like, no, I want eye contact. I don't like shouting at people in the other room. Oh, he says he can hear me, but you guys, I think we're just going to.
I can hear you. Hold on.
Aaron, you didn't have to run. So there's an assist. There's an assist called a loss of a person assist. Okay. And it's one command. That's it. So my husband dies. Dan gets me into the org. I don't want to go. I couldn't get, I couldn't even get out of bed. I was so sad. And I go and this auditor who's like 18 in the Sea Org, his name is Colin. I'd never met him. He gives me this loss of a person assist, and this shit lasts like 2.5 hours because you can't stop and assist. It's a session. So you go as long as the person brightens up and they realize something. So this stupid guy and that's the other thing. It's almost like being in the course room, Aaron, where there's people. He's walking me around public everywhere. We're walking around the org, but we also walk across the street to like where Walgreens is. We're walking into parking lots. So like, you guys can imagine what that's like. I'm sobbing. And the one command is look around here and find something that doesn't remind you of Fred. Well, Fred just died. I just lost someone who not only died, but was on hospice, said goodbye to me. Fred's last words were, no one will ever love you as much as I do. So I don't know if it's better to just lose someone, honestly, and you wake up and they're gone or they just die, or if it's better to be able to say all your goodbyes, because I was able to say all my goodbyes and he was able to express everything he ever wanted to say to me. But that was really hard, and also a gift, right? Like, clearly, I think about him every day. I still talk to him. I have pictures of him all over the house. Jeff doesn't mind that. I keep Fred alive in my mind all the time. I honor him. I love that guy. So look around here and find something that doesn't remind you of Fred is not going to work for me because I am reeling from the loss of Fred. And that's the command. So not only am I required to find that dirty pop can on the ground that doesn't remind me of Fred, I've got fucking people all around me. And you have to go to the end. You have to go till you're at a good point. And at that time, I think by the 2.5 hours, I was just like, you got to dry these tears. In my mind, I'm thinking you got to pull yourself up because this is never going to end. And I want to get the hell out of here. And I think that's the last time I was at the org. I never went back. I was traumatized by it. I know I didn't go back because Dan wrote a whole program. Dan's the senior CS, so he writes all the programs for the auditors to follow through with. And I remember this auditor, we finished that assist, and afterward he goes, okay, so I've got a whole list of stuff, like what's your schedule this week? We're gonna do some more, getting off the Fred sadness. And I was like, yeah, I'll let you know. I never came back. I never went back. That was so painful for me. It's weird that you guys, most of you probably know my original story with Aaron, where there was some sadness there too, and losing my dad and, just the abuse of all of that. I handle that so much better. Maybe because those people weren't my real true people anyway. Maybe I have people keep messaging me. See this on my arm? You can't read it probably, but it makes me think of that. I have these quotes on my arm, and I'm not a big tattoo person, but Fred.
Damn, are you tatted up like Thug Life?
Yeah, seriously, it's hardcore. I have a whole other type of life. You don't want to know about it. Fred would always say to me, and it took years to get these tattoos. I really thought it out, but Fred would always say, this pertains to what I'm saying. I'm not just rambling. Fred would always say to me, I loved this. He would always say when I would leave the house or come home, anytime, he would just go, "Hey, I'm rooting for you." And it was so peaceful. I loved it. And then he would also always just like be sitting by me or anything. He'd randomly look at me and he'd go, "I'm on your side." And it was so comforting. It was just something he would always say to me. So I have that written on both of my arms. "I'm rooting for you and I'm on your side." And I just realized that. I didn't mean to get into this sad story, guys, and you're probably ready to be done, but I just realized that maybe that's why that hurts more, because Fred truly showered me with love. He would have never left my side. And look at my dad. I mean, I got a non-interpolation order and he was like, "I'm out of here. We cut ties. You are done, girl." And that's bizarre because I remained in Scientology after that. I remained in good standing Scientology. When I came back and cleaned my, did my lower conditions, he still wouldn't talk to me. So, I mean, there's nothing I could have done that would ever make Fred or anybody that loves you truly leave you like that. So for whatever reason, I could process all the losses of those empty people, right? But when I had to go in for that assist, I was like, this doesn't work for me. I can't, it's painful to go over what doesn't remind you of Fred. Everything reminds me of Fred. To this day, things remind me of Fred all the time. But don't push me on it. It's like abusive. It's like rubbing salt in the wound. Like I feel like you're trying to make me forget about Fred by doing that assist. What doesn't remind you of him? Look around here and find something. Yes. And I was like, I don't want to forget. I don't want to find anything that doesn't remind me of him. I want to look everywhere and think of him. And he would want that too.
That's an excellent point. They are essentially trying to get you to forget the person. Stop. And you go, why? Why is it not okay to just experience grief and sadness? And I think people, I don't know about you, but I can walk down the street and tell you who's a Scientologist. I can tell you if someone in the grocery store is a Scientologist. And one of the reasons is
way more of them at Clearwater.
That's true. One of the reasons is they have this perpetually fake enthusiasm plastered on their faces most of the time. Now, aside from the direct, piercing eye contact with total strangers, that's pretty much a dead giveaway.
Tom Cruise style.
Exactly. You crossed the line.
Nobody's ever asked me that before.
but like, there's something, Scientologists have an affect of enthusiasm, or what are the other upper tone levels? Cheerfulness, exhilaration, enthusiasm, that they're constantly trying to exude. And it's probably at some point becomes a subconscious thing, because expressing any sadness or despair or, God forbid, depression is just considered the worst possible way to be in Scientology. That you're just programmed. You become, you end up, you're in this gear. You're always extroverting, you're always projecting happiness. It's like, it's not a passive thing. It's like an active thing. It's like the Care Bears and their Care Bear stare.
But I also think they're kind of serious, like your creepy OT8 that came out and just stared at everyone. They can also be in that kind of, seriously, they're not all like super cheerful like that. Some of them are very like, just
no, but it was a happy stare.
That's weird.
Anyway.
That's weird. I don't see that so much.
So Robert Paulson points out, this is what Tom Cruise is known for now. This is crazy Tom Cruise. He's a little too much. And I think where I was going with all this is people wonder, like, why do Scientologists always have that forced smile, that forced, everything's great, everything's fantastic, everything's theta and wonderful. It's like, because if someone says, "How are you doing?" You're not even, "Oh, not a great day." You're like, "Oh, that's in theta. I'm going to write you up."
Totally. Or what'd you do to that person? Let's pull it.
Yeah.
Let's pull the withhold. Yeah, I think you're right. It's either that state or it's like the serious / anger. It's okay. Like I'm blown away right now because I never thought of that. It's totally fine to throw chairs. It's totally fine to seriously throw things and be mad because you're that's the definition of impingement in the admin dictionary. You're impinging.
Enough
Dan
jolt
once
to
told me
attract
that.
attention.
Dan once
Enough
told me that
jolt.
when I said, why do you throw shit? Why are you so angry? And he would go, I'm impinging. And he went and got the admin dictionary and he was like, read the definition of impingement. Sure.
So
Okay,
to Dan,
psycho.
it was literally L. Ron Hubbard tech properly applied to throw things to get people's attention and really know that you mean it. So you
Yeah,
can throw chairs at people, you just can't cry while you're doing it.
That's what I mean. I was like, okay, so it's okay to be like Ike Turner and smack your wife around. But the second, like, I lose my husband and I want to cry about it, or I go to a funeral and we're not going to allow that. It's weird, isn't it? That like sadness really is a band of tone level there that you're not allowed to partake in. Anger's
Yeah.
okay. Anger's kind of high up on the tone scale.
And then, but you know what the kind of the craziness that this sets up is that when someone leaves Scientology, now they sort of struggle sometimes. I don't mean to paint everybody with one brush, with whether there's now something wrong with them that they're experiencing sadness and almost reinforces the idea that, that they told me that if I left Scientology, it would all fall apart. And it's like, no, it's just okay to experience emotion. There's doesn't have to be a bad thing.
Yes. And so I think like since I have been out, I cry so much more, but it's not I get over it. I cry and I get over it, but it feels good in a way to be like, I experienced that and that's okay. Losing Fred was the hardest thing for me. And I still have really hard days about that sometimes, but I'd rather feel it. And I know that he would want me to feel it. You know what I mean? I experienced so much with him and had so many good times and talks and deep talks that I'm like, I'll never forget that. And it's okay to cry about it. Versus someone going, no, don't cry. Don't cry. Let's clap. Let's clap. Please don't show emotion. We don't want you to cry. You can throw things, but you can't cry. That's really odd.
Even as a former Scientologist, I am struck by the absurdity of interrupting people who are speaking at a funeral because they start to cry and trying to override or overwhelm them with noisemakers and cheers and applause and whistles and hoots and hollers. It's a very, very good illustration of the emotional damage and abuse that exists in Scientology. And I never would have even seen it that way when I was still in. It's only having the benefit of space and hindsight that I can see that and acknowledge that.
Another quick example of that, I lost a cousin when I lived in Omaha when I was little, and he was my age, and he got into a car accident. It was terrible, and he died. And we come to Kansas City for the funeral, me and my dad, and I'm sitting there crying in this, what do you call it, a pew in a church. I'm sitting there crying, and I was like weeping, and I had my head down, and my dad does that to me like hardcore into my ribs, and he goes, "Get your TRs in." I was a child. And it was, I'll never forget that. It was so, one, it hurt. I mean, he really hit me. And I was like, and I just stopped crying. I was like, I'm scared now to cry. I need to. And I remember thinking like, he's right. Get my TRs in. I need to get my TRs in. I'm a soldier. Like, get your TRs in. That's so fucked up. My kid is 13 now. I can't imagine doing that to him because he's crying. Like, crying's not allowed.
Man.
There's no crying in funerals. No crying in baseball. There's no crying in funerals.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a good discussion, guys. Again, I'm sorry some of that was heavy today, and we won't always be heavy. Aaron and I like a good laugh just as much as you, but it is stuff that should be kind of touched on because it's interesting to know. I think it's interesting to know that stuff. It's the guts of Scientology. It's not the stuff that, they're so mysterious and secretive. You'll never know that.
Yeah. I think it's a good story to tell. It's good for people to know that. And I'll tell you, when I first watched Going Clear, the documentary, I knew all those people. I knew all their stories. And if I had heard those stories, if I had heard the exact stories that were told on the screen, and I was just having that private conversation with someone in a private room, it would not have had an emotional impact on me. But there was something about seeing it on a screen in an environment with non-Scientologists that brought home the absolute lack of humanity and lack of basic human dignity that these stories that were reflected in these stories, and how horribly Scientology really does treat people. There was something about seeing it in the company of people who had not also lived it that somehow brought the emotion of it on me.
Yeah.
I
gotta go back and watch that. I haven't seen it for a while.
Yeah. Like, I just sobbed through the whole goddamn thing. Whereas I could have spoken to any one of those people face to face, and it would not have emotionally impacted me in any way. Because I'm almost like, oh my God, the world is seeing just how bad what we went through was. And I didn't actually think it was that bad until right now. It's sort of what was going through my fucking head.
Yeah.
I'm telling that anecdote because part of me hopes that people who are still in the bubble will hear us talking about stories like this and go, my God, I've been through that, and it didn't quite occur to me how bad that was, but it really was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And not like shoving it in someone's face, but like, anyway.
No. That's why I think for me doing this channel this is more the stuff I want to talk about versus like stuff in the news or anything like that. It's coming out of this even years later. It's like I realized stuff on the Monday Night Live just the other night. I realized things. I'm like, what? I just kind of, it's fascinating to me to go back and talk about stuff. And I think it's shed some light anyway. And it's a benefit. It's a good thing to do. It's therapeutic for me though, I have to say. Like, it really means a lot to me to have this conversation with you, but then also have people over there talking and people messaging me. Keep it coming. It's so helpful to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And all that being said, I think probably most of the stuff Reese and I will do together is going to be the sort of the happy, funny, bubbly stuff. But it all comes back to this in the end anyway, right? Because if Scientology wasn't harming people and destroying lives and families, we wouldn't even be doing the happy, funny stuff. We'd have no reason to talk about it.
Right.
I mean,
That's
honestly,
right.
wouldn't even spend the time,
That's right.
So thanks for doing this chat with me, Reese. I do appreciate it.
I'm really enjoying it. I hope that people enjoy watching us. I hope I'm not boring.
I don't think you're boring at all. I don't think the viewers do either. Let's tackle a few more here. Have you seen Mark Wahlberg dissing Tom Cruise on Top Gear? A must see. I've seen that. So many hundreds of people have sent me this video. I'll probably have to chop it up and do something with it. He's really he's more dissing Scientology even than Tom Cruise.
Really?
Someone asked him like, well, someone asked Mark Wahlberg something like, it was either, do you ever work with Tom Cruise? Do you know Tom Cruise? He's like, no, we belong to different churches. And for some reason that got a big applause. And then he goes, mine's the one with Jesus. It's not even really a diss. It's kind of a sort of diss, but not really. But he got a lot of applause for that one. He's like, yeah, my church is the one with Jesus.
That makes me think of something that happened in the more recent, right before I lost everybody and was out. Doug invited Huxley, and I got a KR on me for this. Doug invited Huxley. He had him on a Saturday, and he invited him to the org for an event, which he didn't ask me about. He was supposed to ask, but he didn't end up going anyway. You know what Huxley's response was?
What?
I got written up for this. So Doug goes, hey, you want to come with me to an event tonight? They're going to have this and that and other kids. And Huxley said, no, thanks. I'm not a Scientologist.
And someone wrote a report on you because your son said that.
Brenda did. Doug told Brenda, and Brenda wrote a report because she was so pissed that, obviously I was like black PRing him or telling him to say that, but I thought, I love that kid thinks for himself like that. I would have never told him to say that, but he just cheerfully was like, no, thanks. I'm not a Scientologist. I don't belong to your church.
That is funny. So in my wife's family, her brother Adam was always the black sheep because he's the one who always kind of hated Scientology and would, make fun of the OT levels and shit like that. And he's got kids of his own. So on one Thanksgiving dinner, and yet Adam's in-laws are like, two of the biggest, wealthiest OT8s in Canada. So they would always come to town for Thanksgiving, and they're always talking about the latest happening here, the latest happening there in Scientology. And someone must have mentioned something about the e-meter. And at the Thanksgiving table, Adam's daughter goes, "The e-meter? Is that thing that shocks people?" with a family of OT 7s and 8s, and everyone's thinking, but of course, everyone's thinking to themselves, what in the hell is Adam saying to his children?
Right.
That's what they think the e-meter is.
That's hilarious. They get so offended by those comments. Yeah. They get so offended by that. Doug was just so upset that Huxley said that. I'm not a Scientologist, because, that's the ultimate goal. And for him to be thinking thinking for himself, that's a problem.
Wow. Tarkina Meyer says $10 for the Aaron plug-in lights. See, Reese, I thought I was spending the big bucks to get the big boy lights with the batteries, like a grown man. And I thought the plug-in wall lights was like the cheapo lights. The real muckety mucks get the batteries. Everyone thinks I can't afford to get the lights that plug into the wall. I'm like, I spent extra for the batteries, damn it.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, apparently, as we've learned, the batteries seem to last precisely 2 hours.
I guess I'm going to need to get something like that. By the way, guys, I am going to move out of here. We have a whole office in the basement that I'm going to clean out and make my own home, because this is Jeff's office and I don't like it, but maybe I need to get stuff like that too, Aaron. I don't want the battery one, so.
Get the plugins. Okay. Marfta, can't you keep your batteries where you can reach them from your seat? Marfta, I actually have a lot of batteries. Reaching the batteries is not the problem. Putting them into the light to replace them is the problem. The light is further than I can reach, and it's also on the other side of my computer screen. So I have to get up, run around. I can do it in 5 seconds flat, but I really should just go get plug-in lights. But I'm like, then what am I going to do with these lights? I would have wasted them. We'll see. Studio. I mean, what's funny is the lights only cost like $20 each, but I can't bring myself to not use them since I bought them. I'm so cheap. I am cheap about the most ridiculous things. I'd be like, oh, we need a new AC system? No problem. We need a new floor? No problem. But I will stand in Costco for 5 minutes debating whether to get the apples that cost 95 cents per pound or $1.10 per pound. And I will spend an unusual amount of time stressing over this on not which one is cheaper, but which one is going to give me the most apple value per dollar spent. Like, I am weird about things like this. And so these lights might have only cost $20 each. The batteries might have only cost an extra $50 at most. But the fact that I've already spent money on these things is the only reason I don't go and just buy lights that plug in. I'm weird.
That is weird. I'm kind of glad we don't live in the same city, that we're just meeting out here once a day. You do spend a lot of time at Costco, though.
I do spend a lot of time at Costco.
Because you're comparing apples, prices on apples. That's ridiculous. You got to get out.
I know. All right. Studio says Reese's story reminds me of Nathan's story. I don't know if you know who Nathan is. He's a good friend of mine. He lives over in China. Nathan Rich. We did. He and I have probably done like a dozen hours of interview on my channel. He's great. Her dad was a public Scientologist. Oh, your dad was a public Scientologist like Nathan's mom. Was he also OT8? Was your dad OT8?
My dad has been a Scientologist since like 1969. And I heard he just finally attested to clear. So my dad does not make a lot of bridge progress. He just gives money. He's a big donor. His wife is an OT8. He likes to show that off. But it's real bizarre. He's more about money status.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, my father was never in Scientology, but my little brother's father, I don't ever talk about my little brother. I do have a younger brother, 6 years younger than me, who lives here in Clearwater and disconnected from me. Since he disconnected from me, he's gotten married. He's had a daughter. I find all this stuff out about on Facebook. He lives
Darius
DiMartino. He lives 3 minutes from me. Haven't seen the guy in years. Didn't, it's disgusting. Why was I saying that? Oh,
weird.
His father has been a Scientologist for Darius's entire life. So Darius is 6 years younger than me. I'm 42. What does that make Darius 36? So his father's been a Scientologist for over 40 years and has been a wise business consultant the entire time and has never attested to the state of clear. And he lives here in Clearwater. So he's a flag public. Never attested to the state of clear. It's very weird that this happens.
It is weird. And I always wanted my dad to get on the OT levels because when I would complain over and over and over for years, going in session, ethics stuff, doing all that, I would complain that he disconnected from me. I'm a Scientologist. Like, Scientologists in good standing don't disconnect from other Scientologists in good standing, especially their freaking kids, right? So whenever I'd complain, they'd always go, wait till he gets onto his OT levels. It's really going to crack things wide open. Let him get onto the OT levels. I wanted him to get to OT8 so bad to show everyone, look, he's the same dick swinging asshole. Nothing's changed. He's still a dick swinger. Here we are. But he is not. I think he just attested to clear.
Does it swing and dick?
He's a swinging dick.
Asshole? Is that how that works?
Dick swinging all over town.
All right. Lisa Marchbanks says, we're interested in serial killers, just like we're interested in cults. Hi, Reese.
That's so true. Hi, Lisa. I love Lisa. We're Facebook friends. That is true. I shouldn't have said move over serial killers because they do kind of get 50-50. Don't you agree? Everybody likes serial killers just as much as cults.
Yeah. Hey, it's the best way to get yourself a Netflix special. And they do a good job.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been the first of many hundreds to come. We have so many ideas of stuff to do. We are going to have an absolute blast. So thank you, everyone, for joining us. We're going to do something every day until we, run out of ideas, which I think will never happen. So, it won't all be at 2.5 hours,
no.
but it'll be something. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay.
And
we'll
remember, guys, go over.
then, I guess.
Check the video description down below. You can subscribe to Reese at Relatable Reese. Actually, I feel really bad. Hold on, because I'll always hey, we've already been on for 2.5 hours. An extra minute's not going to kill anybody. Let me Relatable Reese. Hey guys, remember, I'm trying to hit that. We don't want to have a huge fundraising scandal where we can't tell how much money you guys helped me raise for the foundation by hitting 1,700 subs. So let's hit 100. Let's hit 170,000 subs today. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Please, please, please. And hit that like button. And I'm trying to pull up Reese's channel here so you guys can jump.
Are some people watching this on my channel, or are we all on your channel?
Oh, no, there's people watching on your channel. Let me see.
Neat.
Let's actually click on your channel and see how many people are watching on your channel. 221 people are watching on your channel.
Oh, nice.
Pretty good. That's pretty
exciting.
Good, Relatable Reese.
Thanks, guys.
Super fantastic. Jump over, show Reese some love. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Much more to come. Stay tuned. Thank you to everyone who watches until the very end. We'll talk to you soon.
See you guys tomorrow.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe